Chapter 367. When the mysterious silver pearl appeared, Ji Tianqing stared at it, unable to move his eyes away. He didn't know why, but his heart actually skipped a few beats. The blood in his body flowed faster, and a strong desire surged from the depths of his soul. There seemed to be a voice in the depths of his heart urging him to approach the mysterious silver pearl. Buzz! Buzz! The blooming golden lotus gently flapped its petals and slowly floated in front of Ji Tianqing. The mysterious silver pearl in the stamen released brilliant starlight and faintly emitted an invisible, majestic aura. He looked at the silver pearl up close and found that it was crystal clear. He could vaguely see a golden drop of water inside the pearl. Although the golden drop of liquid was in the shape of a water droplet, it was as solid and stable as a crystal. Ji Tianqing could clearly feel that the golden drop of water was emitting a majestic aura that called his soul. He was instantly enlightened, and 6 words appeared in his mind. Heavenly Astral Pearl. Kenshin's blood. At that moment, the blood in his body flowed. His eyes were filled with excitement, and his body trembled slightly. Heavenly Astral Pearl. It must be the Heavenly Astral Pearl. I've waited for too long. I've finally found you. Ji Tianqing murmured in a low, hoarse voice. His entire body and mind were focused on the mysterious silver pearl, and he completely forgot about everything else. Yunyao also came back to her senses. She could feel the destructive aura inside the mysterious silver pearl and couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. She saw Ji Tianqing's abnormal expression and his body trembling with excitement and immediately guessed the reason. It seems that this mysterious pearl is the Kenshin's relic that Tianqing is looking for. It's something very important to him. Kenshin's battle robe took the initiative to recognize him as its master, and the Kenshin's relic also took the initiative to appear. Tianqing, oh Tianqing, what's your relationship with Kenshin? I'm getting closer to you, but why are you becoming more and more mysterious? Why can't I see through you? Yunyao stared at Ji Tianqing with deep eyes. She stood quietly to the side, not making any sound so as not to disturb him. At this moment, Ji Tianqing slowly stretched out his hands and lifted the heavenly astral pearl from the stamen of the golden lotus. With soft hissing sounds, the perfectly blooming golden lotus instantly collapsed into millions of golden spots of light, scattering and disappearing. The heavenly star bead in Ji Tianqing's palm also seemed to have come alive. It followed the rhythm of his breathing and bloomed with bright starlight. His mind and consciousness were immersed in the heavenly star bead, entering an extremely mysterious state. He seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. His face was serene as he closed his eyes and sat cross-legged on the ground. The heavenly star bead also slowly flew towards his forehead and entered through his glabella. In the next moment, the silver bead shattered and turned into millions of silver light spots. They spread out in his body and flowed to his limbs and bones along with his blood. Swoosh! The vast power of the stars immediately spread throughout his body and merged into every drop of blood, every inch of his meridians, skin, flesh, and bones. His body was also covered in a layer of silver starlight. His figure became hazy and illusory. The silver pearl shattered, and the drop of golden Kenshin blood also lost its restraints and flowed into his heart. Every time his heart beat, the Kenshin blood would release a faint trace of golden bloodline power and merge into his blood. Ji Tianqing's body suddenly glowed with a dazzling golden color. His entire body emitted a holy and domineering aura. The endless power of the stars was rapidly strengthening his physical body. His muscles and bones were twisting and wriggling slowly. They were being refined by the power of the stars until they glowed with silver light. Every time his skin, muscles, and bones wriggled, his physique would transform and strengthen at an incredible speed. At the same time, the Kenshin blood in his heart also gradually released its golden bloodline power and gradually refined his bloodline. All of this was due to the changes in Ji Tianqing's body. He sat on the ground without moving and maintained his cultivation posture. He was as steady as a rock. Even if his body was twisting and all his bones and muscles were being reconstructed, he could not feel any pain or torture. That was because his soul and body had been separated by the heavenly astral pearl and the Kenshin blood. His soul had fallen into a deep sleep and was experiencing a dream that seemed both real and illusory. Yin Yao stood beside him and looked at him with a focused and concerned expression. In the first 4 hours, she was still full of worry, afraid that something would happen to Ji Tianqing. After all, the golden and silver light and changes brought by the mysterious pearl flying into Ji Tianqing's body were too shocking. But after 4 hours, she saw that Ji Tianqing's expression was peaceful and his breathing was very stable. There were no abnormalities. She was finally relieved and sat down 5 steps away from him, silently guarding him. Yin Yao could see that his body was undergoing tremendous changes. His physique and strength were also rapidly increasing. She thought to herself, Tianqing has merged with Kenshin's relic. He will definitely receive great benefits. His martial talent and potential will very likely surpass mine in the future. I hope that his strength will increase by leaps and bounds after this cultivation. She had guessed that Ji Tianqing would very likely reach the heavens in a single step after merging with Kenshin's relic and possess heaven-defying talent. But she did not feel jealous at all. Instead, she felt gratified and happy for him from the bottom of her heart. Deep in her heart, she also wanted to see him grow quickly and become a martial arts expert as soon as possible. Time passed silently in the spacious and dark hall. Unknowingly, a day had passed. Ji Tianqing had already refined 1/10 of the power of the stars in his body. He had also absorbed about 1/10 of the Kenshin blood. His sword embryo, 9 sword veins, and 72 apertures had also silently changed their positions under the transformation of the Kenshin blood, forming the sword palace in his body. The Kenshin blood had helped him complete the cultivation of the 5th level of the sword heart path, allowing him to naturally break through the mystic comprehending realm and reach the primal core realm. From this moment on, he had broken through the shackles of talent and stepped into a whole new realm of martial arts. For other primal core realm experts, the vital essence stored in their dantian would condense into a solid elixir. Ji Tianqing's sword embryo had long been solid. After reaching the primal core realm, it did not change much. Next, after reaching the primal core realm, he would cultivate the 6th level of the sword heart path and open up 18 sword veins in his body. A normal human ancient martial art practitioner only had 9 meridians. It was impossible for them to open up 9 new meridians. However, the power of the stars in Ji Tianqing's body had been constantly helping him to transform the structure of his body and reorganize his meridians and apertures. As time passed, new meridians appeared in his body. The 10th, 11th, 12th. Chapter 368. Time flowed by ceaselessly in the dark and silent audience hall. Ji Tianqing had always been enveloped by the silver starlight, and his entire body was suffused with a faint golden light that emitted a mysterious and majestic aura. His eyes were tightly closed as he slept, allowing the star energy to transform his fleshly body and help him open and temper his sword vein. That drop of golden Kenshin blood slowly dissipated and merged into Ji Tianqing's bloodline. 3 days passed by quickly. Ji Tianqing finally completely merged with that drop of Kenshin blood, and the blood that flowed in his body completed its transformation and successfully merged with the Kenshin bloodline. The star energy was exhausted as well, strengthening his fleshly body to the limit. After his body was reconstructed, it became different from an ordinary human. Not only was his defense, strength, and speed extremely strong, his compatibility with the spirit energy of heaven and earth had reached a nearly perfect level. His speed of absorbing the spirit energy of heaven and earth was at least 5 times faster than before. Now that he meditated and cultivated for a day, the true origin energy he accumulated was comparable to 5 days of accumulation in the past. And the greatest change in his body was that he opened up 3 new meridians, and they were tempered into sword veins by the star energy. An ordinary person only had 9 meridians, but Ji Tianqing possessed 12 meridians. Not only did this cause his true origin to be even more majestic and his strength to become even more formidable, it also allowed him to break through the shackles of the human body, and his natural talent surpassed the limits of the human race. Of course, within these 3 days, his strength and cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, and it rose at an unbelievable speed. Presently, his strength had already reached the 3rd level of the origin core stage. After fusing with the heavenly star bead, not only did he surpass the 5th level of the Sword Heart Dao, he even surpassed the 1st and 2nd level of the Origin Core stage and directly jumped to the 3rd level of the Origin Core stage. Such a shocking speed of growth caused even him to feel disbelief. An ordinary Origin Core stage expert would need 3 to 5 years to advance a level, whereas he only used 3 days to advance from the 9th level of the Profound Comprehension stage to the 3rd level of the Origin Core stage. Such a shocking speed of advancement could simply be called heaven-defying. The Heavenly Star Bead brought him enormous gains, not only reconstructing his fleshly body and fusing with the Kenshin bloodline, it also saved him 10 years of bitter cultivation. Finally, the silver starlight on Ji Tianqing's body dissipated, and the faint golden light on his skin also disappeared. He had already refined the Heavenly Star Bead and fused with the Kenshin bloodline. However, there was still a vast amount of star power hidden in his limbs and bones, subtly strengthening his body. For a long time to come, the Kenshin bloodline would continue to strengthen his bloodline and further enhance his talent. Ji Tianqing left the dreamland and gradually woke up. He opened his eyes. Shwa! At that instant, his eyes that were deep and vast like the stars emanated a fierce bright light, and he emanated a confident and overbearing aura. His body shape and appearance had undergone some subtle changes. Now, his figure had become even taller and more valiant. His muscles were smooth, and his body proportions were perfect. Even his face was more handsome than before, and he had the confidence and arrogance of a genius expert. Not far from him, Yunyao had silently guarded him for 3 days. Seeing him wake up, Yunyao was completely relieved. Her eyes stared at his face, carefully sizing him up. Yunyao could clearly feel the changes in him, and she could see that his strength had indeed advanced by leaps and bounds, and he had actually reached the 3rd level of the Origin Core stage. Not only that, his figure and appearance had become even more perfect and outstanding, and his temperament had become even more determined, confident, and overbearing. She had only seen such a unique aura on a few experts. Just as Ji Tianqing woke up from his dream and opened his eyes, Ji Tianqing's expression changed. In the vast and boundless starry sky, among the densely packed stars, there was a tiny and weak star that suddenly blossomed with dazzling starlight. The originally silent and dim star suddenly became as dazzling as the 7 stars of the Heavenly Dipper, and it was actually able to compete with the bright moon. At the peak of a mountain in the Tianjian sect, the white-bearded and white-haired Taoist priest was standing at the peak of a palace, holding a silver horsetail whisk in his hand as he calmly looked up at the night sky. His eyes shone brightly as he deeply observed the stars in the sky, and he silently deduced some clues in his mind. At this moment, he saw that in the depths of the bright starry sky, there was a weak and dim star that suddenly lit up with dazzling starlight, and it actually overshadowed the light of the 7 stars of the Heavenly Dipper. He was instantly filled with shock, and his expression changed drastically as his eyes widened. He stared at the dazzling star in disbelief, and his brows were tightly knitted together. The 5 fingers on his right hand moved rapidly as he quickly deduced the secrets of the heavens. After a long time, when he deduced the result, his expression immediately became furious and ferocious, and his eyes were filled with intense rage. The Heavenly Star Pearl actually appeared. If I'm not wrong, it should be that kid who obtained the Heavenly Star Pearl. Taoist priest Heavenly Secret's emotions became extremely complicated, and he was both shocked and furious. The Heavenly Star Pearl has appeared, and it seems like the time for our Devil clan to revive has arrived. I have to send a message to Lord Devil King as soon as possible. He muttered in his heart before he hurriedly turned around and left. At the same time, in the imperial court hundreds of millions of miles away from the Tianshan region, the sage-like imperial tutor was sitting cross-legged on the star-plucking platform that was tens of thousands of feet tall. He held a golden horsetail whisk in his hand, and his eyes were closed as he silently cultivated, comprehending the myriad of stars and the secrets of the heavens. The star-plucking platform was the closest place to the sky, and it was as if one could reach out and pluck the stars in the sky. Below the platform was a sea of white clouds, and the clouds were churning. The astral wind on the platform was biting cold, and there was even the fire of the 9 heaven stars descending at any time. Martial artists below the heavenly origin realm would not be able to stay on the star-plucking platform for long, and their souls would be blown away by the astral wind or frozen to death. The imperial tutor was only wearing a purple robe, and he had been sitting on the platform engraved with array patterns for a few days, but he was still safe and sound, and did not feel the slightest bit of discomfort. For an expert like him, who had long been above the masses, how could he be hurt by the wind and frost? He was using a secret art of the Xian Dao, observing the stars with the heavenly magic eye, and deducing the mysteries of the Tianqian region. Suddenly, the weak and tiny star in the vast starry sky lit up with dazzling starlight. The starlight covered the brilliance of millions of stars, and it was actually able to compete with the brilliance of the moon. The imperial tutor's expression changed abruptly, and he opened his eyes with a swish. He looked at the starry sky with a sharp gaze, and stared at the dazzling star. There is a faint golden light in the dazzling silver. That star is Kenshin's destined star. The imperial tutor's face was full of shock, and he exclaimed in disbelief, Kenshin's destined star has been silent and dim for thousands of years. Why did it suddenly shine again tonight? Could it be that Kenshin has appeared again? Thinking of this, the imperial tutor lost his composure, and the beard on his chin trembled. Chapter 369. Ji Tianqing had just woken up when he saw Yunyao next to him. Seeing that she looked a little tired, he said gently, "Eldest senior sister, you've been protecting me while I was sleeping and cultivating. Thank you for your hard work." Yunyao stared at him. Her eyes and emotions were very calm. She said naturally, "There's no need to thank me between you and me." Ji Tianqing nodded. There was a gentle smile in his eyes. He asked again, "Eldest senior sister, how long have I been sleeping?" 3 days. Yunyao stood up. She used her power to shake off the dust on her white dress. She returned to her fairy-like appearance. Ji Tianqing frowned and said softly, "I've been sleeping for 3 days?" The 9 cauldrons universe formation can only be temporarily closed for 3.5 days. Eldest senior sister, we only have half a day left. We have to leave as soon as possible. Okay. Yunyao nodded in agreement. After a pause, she asked again, "Tianqing, the ancient tomb is so big. Aren't you going to explore other places? Moreover, this is a Kenshin tomb and there are Kenshin relics here. Don't you want to know if the Kenshin remains are buried here?" Ji Tianqing thought for a while and made up his mind. "Then let's set the time limit at 6 hours. When the time is up, we have to leave regardless of whether we find anything or not." "Okay, let's get started then." Yunyao agreed. Then, the two of them left the empty and dark hall and entered a dark passage. They continued to travel through the ancient tomb and explore more places. There were hundreds of passages in the ancient tomb. They were crisscrossed and stacked on top of each other. It was as complicated as a fishing net. However, Ji Tianqing had already understood the mystery of the maze. He could always find the right passage quickly and accurately. In the next 6 hours, he led Yunyao through the passageway and found a few more side halls and stone rooms. In the smaller side halls, there were only some strange statues, but no useful clues. There were several stone rooms with reliefs and words carved into the walls. They recorded the deeds of Emperor Yi when he was young and received guidance from Kenshin. Other than that, the two of them did not find any other treasures, nor did they find Kenshin's coffin or remains. 6 hours were almost up. Ji Tianqing stopped searching and led Yunyao through the passage to the edge of the ancient tomb. While the two of them were walking in the tunnel, Yunyao had also analyzed the results. It seems that this mausoleum of Kenshin that Renhuang Yi built is not a true mausoleum of Kenshin, but a cenotaph. Ji Tianqing had already guessed this, so he nodded and explained, when Renhuang Yi was young, he was fortunate enough to receive guidance from Kenshin, which is why he is so respectful of Kenshin. Although Kenshin only gave him some small guidance, it changed his life and made him a top cultivator in the Tianqian region. Renhuang Yi regarded Kenshin as his teacher. After he learned of Kenshin's death, he built a cenotaph at the foot of Longshan to commemorate and remember Kenshin. After listening to his explanation, Yunyao finally understood the origin of the ancient tomb on Longshan and understood the whole story. "I see." Not long after, the two of them returned to the passage that they had just entered the ancient tomb. Yunyao took out 2 Earth Escape talismans. The two of them used the power of the talismans to leave the dark passage and return to the surface. Outside the ancient tomb, at the entrance of the Tianyuan formation, Chu Huaishan and several deacons stared at the dark ancient tomb. Their eyes were filled with anxiety and worry. The deacons were on tenterhooks and discussing in low voices. It's already the 4th day. Why haven't Tianqing and Yunyao come out yet? Ever since the two of them entered the ancient tomb, there hasn't been any movement inside. Could something have happened? This ancient tomb has a history of thousands of years and is protected by the Tianyuan formation. It must be extremely dangerous. I'm really worried that Tianqing and Yunyao can't handle it. Don't say such discouraging words. Let's wait patiently. I believe in Tianqing and Yunyao. Chu Huaishan's expression was solemn. He was silently considering whether to send a message to the sect leader. Even if he knew that Yunyao and Ji Tianqing were top geniuses who possessed talent and wisdom that ordinary warriors could not imagine. However, it had been 4 days, and Yunyao and Ji Tianqing still hadn't shown up. There was no news at all. How could he not be anxious? After weighing the pros and cons for a long time, he finally made up his mind. He would wait for 2 more hours at most. If there was still no news from Ji Tianqing and Yunyao, he would send a message to the sect leader and ask him to make a decision. At this moment, he suddenly saw 2 rays of yellow light shining behind the huge tombstone in the dark ancient tomb. Swoosh! Swoosh! After the 2 rays of yellow light faded, 2 figures in white robes appeared. Although they were far away, the 2 figures were a little hazy. Chu Huaishan couldn't see them clearly. However, he was sure that the 2 figures were Ji Tianqing and Yunyao. Great! They're finally out. Chu Huaishan finally heaved a sigh of relief. The heavy burden in his heart was finally lifted. The anxious and worried deacons also showed a relieved expression, and their faces were full of smiles. That's great. They're fine. I wonder if the 2 of them made any discoveries or gains in the tomb. Don't worry about that. It's good that they're out. That's right. If anything happens to them, we won't be able to explain it to the sect leader. The deacons discussed for a while, and their moods relaxed. After a while, Ji Tianqing and Yunyao walked out along the black stone path. They crossed the entrance of the Tianyuan spell formation and returned to Chu Huaishan and the rest. Tianqing, Yunyao, you're finally out. Chu Huaishan quickly greeted them and said with a relieved expression. Ji Tianqing saluted him and greeted him. Elder Chu, deacons, sorry to keep you waiting. Chu Huaishan and the deacons looked at the 2 of them. They were really relieved when they saw that the 2 of them were unharmed. However, everyone's eyes were focused on Ji Tianqing. They looked at him carefully, and there was a strange look in their eyes. All of them were origin core powerhouses. Naturally, they could see that Ji Tianqing's figure, appearance, and temperament seemed to be different from 4 days ago. When Chu Huaishan used his spiritual sense to check Ji Tianqing's strength, his face was filled with shock and he let out a cry of disbelief. Tianqing. You've reached the origin core stage. The deacons' bodies trembled, and they were all shocked. They stared at Ji Tianqing with their eyes wide open, as if they were looking at a monster. My God! You've broken through to the origin core stage in just 3 to 4 days? Moreover, you're at the 3rd level of the origin core stage. I've been cultivating for more than 50 years to reach the 3rd level of the origin core stage. That's why I can be a deacon in the sect. Tianqing, you're only 17 years old, and you. Sigh. Tianqing, what great opportunity did you get in the ancient tomb? You actually reached the 3rd level of the origin core stage from the 9th level of the mystic enlightenment stage. This is unbelievable. This is a miracle. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. Yunyao reached the origin core stage at the age of 19 and is known as the #1 genius in the heavenly stellar region. Tianqing reached the origin core stage at the age of 17. Isn't he an even greater genius? Ha ha ha, the heavens are protecting our Sky Pillar sect. With these two peerless geniuses, Yunyao and Tianqing, our sect will prosper. Chu Huaishan and the elders were excited. They discussed excitedly and let out waves of exclamations. Everyone compared him to Yunyao. Yunyao didn't feel embarrassed. She was happy for him. Ji Tianqing was praised by the deacons, but he wasn't arrogant. His expression was still indifferent. Chapter 370. Ji Tianqing could clearly see that the Tianyuan Grand Formation was changing. It was about to be reactivated. He said to everyone with a serious face, "We've already explored this tomb. It's worthless now. Elder Chu, deacons, let's leave this place as soon as possible. The Tianyuan Grand Formation is about to be reactivated. I have a feeling that this Grand Formation is about to self-destruct." Chu Huaishan and the deacons' expressions changed slightly when they heard that. Although they had their doubts, they believed him without a doubt. Therefore, everyone followed Ji Tianqing and Yunyao out of the Tianyuan Grand Formation. After 100 breaths of time, when everyone passed through the dilapidated square and was about to enter the ancient passage, the Tianyuan Grand Formation was reactivated. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The five-colored light shield within a kilometer radius immediately lit up with a dazzling brilliance and released a powerful aura. The grand formations that Ji Tianqing and Yunyao had shut down were reactivated one after another. The Nine Cauldrons Universe Grand Formation was the first to be reactivated, followed by the 8-level Dragon Lock and the Big Dipper 7 Stars Grand Formation. Within a dozen breaths of time, all 5 grand formations were reactivated. The Tianyuan Grand Formation became dazzling and powerful again. Immediately after, the Tianyuan Grand Formation began to churn violently as it began to brew. The 5-colored light shield within a kilometer radius started to shake violently. The entire ancient tomb and the ground around it also started to rumble and shake. Along with the cracking sounds, the ground around the ancient tomb cracked open and a huge gully appeared. The dilapidated square also had a huge crack. The stone slabs on the ground started to crumble. Seeing this, Yunyao's expression changed slightly. She thought to herself, just as Tianqing said, the most profound mechanism and the greatest danger in the ancient tomb is the Tianyuan Grand Formation. Fortunately, we left the ancient tomb in time. If we hadn't come out by now, he and I would have been smashed into pieces and died in the ancient tomb. Chu Huaishan and the deacons' expressions also changed slightly. They looked relieved. Tianqing was right. The Grand Tianyuan Formation was about to self-destruct. Fortunately, we left in time. It's not safe enough here. We have to stay away from here. Once the Tianyuan Grand Formation explodes, the entire Dragon Mountain will be destroyed. Hearing the deacon's words, everyone immediately revealed anxious and worried expressions. If the Tianyuan Grand Formation exploded, the entire Dragon Mountain would be blown up. Not only would they not be able to escape, even the guards, disciples, and handymen who guarded the Dragon Mountain would be buried here. Ji Tianqing waved his hand, indicating that there was no need to panic. Don't worry, everyone. The design of this Grand Heaven Essence Formation is incomparably wondrous. Even if the formation self-destructs, its power will be contained within the formation and will not spread to other places. As soon as Ji Tianqing finished speaking, the power accumulated in the Tianyuan Grand Array reached its peak. Boom! A deafening sound suddenly burst out, reverberating in the empty and dark depths of the underground. The huge 5-colored light shield collapsed instantly, turning into a huge 5-colored mushroom cloud. What was strange was that the 5-colored flame burst out when the formation self-destructed did not spread out. Instead, it surged toward the inside of the ancient tomb. Just as Ji Tianqing said, the terrifying power that could destroy the world did not rush out of the Grand Heaven Essence Formation's range. Suddenly, the dark night sky was illuminated. The area within a radius of a few thousand meters was illuminated. The ground around the ancient tomb trembled crazily from the impact. Numerous cracks appeared on the ground, and dust flew into the air. The ancient, dilapidated square collapsed completely. It collapsed into the ground and turned into a huge pit. The surrounding rock walls were also shaken to the point of incessant tremors. Cracks appeared on the walls as dust and gravel rolled down. Even the entire Dragon Mountain started to shake as if there was a huge earthquake. Many handymen and disciples who did not know what was going on fled in panic. The earth-shattering commotion lasted for a full 15 minutes before it stopped. The dazzling five-colored light faded away. The deafening sound dissipated. The trembling ground also calmed down. The area within a radius of a few thousand meters returned to darkness and peace. The air became heavy and still. Everyone opened their eyes wide and looked at the ancient tomb. They saw that the Grand Heaven Essence formation and the ancient tomb had disappeared. There was nothing left in the area within a radius of 1,000 meters. It had become a pitch-black abyss. Everyone stood in the ancient tunnel and witnessed the process of the formation self-destructing and the ancient tomb disappearing. They were all shocked. After a long time, everyone calmed down. They turned around and walked through the tunnel, leaving the depths of the underground. An hour later, Ji Tianqing and Yunyao returned to the peak of the Dragon Mountain. The two of them stood side by side on the peak of the mountain. They looked at the scenery at the foot of the mountain and felt a little emotional. Ji Tianqing looked at the mountains in the distance and said calmly, "In the past, there was a Kenshin mausoleum deep underground. The Dragon Mountain was affected by the Grand Heaven Essence formation and turned into a treasure land with spirit veins. Now that the ancient tomb has disappeared and the Dragon Mountain has been ruined by the Tianjian sect, I'm afraid that this treasure land with spirit veins will be completely destroyed." Yunyao raised her eyebrows and said indifferently, "It's okay. Without the Dragon Mountain, the sect will look for other spirit veins. Let's go back and report to Master. He must be waiting anxiously." Then, the two of them left the Dragon Mountain on the spirit crane and rushed back to the Sky Pillar sect. In less than 2 hours, the two of them returned to the Sky Pillar sect. Yunyao rode the spirit crane and landed on the red firmament peak. The two of them entered the Sky Pillar Palace together and reported to Chu Tiansheng. During these 4 days, although Chu Tiansheng was busy with the sect's affairs, he was always thinking about Ji Tianqing and Yunyao and worried about them. When he heard the black-robed guards report and found out that Yunyao and Ji Tianqing had returned safely, he was finally at ease and heaved a sigh of relief. He immediately walked out of the secret room and quickly entered the Sky Pillar Palace. As soon as he entered the audience hall, he saw Ji Tianqing and Yunyao standing in the audience hall and waiting quietly. He sized them up for a moment before his gaze descended onto Ji Tianqing. He couldn't help but stop as a bright light flashed in his eyes. "Tianqing, you've actually broken through to the Origin Core stage and even reached the 3rd level of the Origin Core stage?" Chu Tianqing revealed a surprised expression and was rather incredulous. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao hurriedly bowed to him. "Greetings, Master." Chu Tianqing raised his hands to indicate that the two of them could dispense with the formalities, and then he hurriedly asked. "Tianqing, quickly tell Master if the two of you broke through the Grand Formation? Did you obtain some fortuitous encounter?" Ji Tianqing nodded and reported with a calm tone. "Master, disciple and eldest senior sister worked together to break through the Grand Formation and found a way to enter the ancient tomb, and we noticed that it was Kenshin's cenotaph. He spent 15 minutes to report the process of him and Yunyao exploring the ancient tomb to Chu Tianqing." Chapter 371. Chu Tianqing had long known that the Longshan ancient tomb must be the tomb of a powerhouse from 1,000 years ago. If he could enter the ancient tomb and obtain the inheritance or treasures of the powerhouse, it would definitely strengthen the foundation and strength of the Sky Pillar sect. Because of this, he sent the elders and deacons of the sect to guard the Longshan ancient tomb day and night. But he never expected that the ancient tomb was Kenshin's mausoleum. Although it was only a cenotaph, the tomb contained Kenshin's treasures, which were obtained by Ji Tianqing, allowing Ji Tianqing to be reborn and his strength to advance by leaps and bounds. This was definitely an unexpected surprise. Of course, Chu Tianqing had heard of the legends of Kenshin and knew what kind of powerhouse Kenshin was. Ji Tianqing being able to obtain Kenshin's treasures was definitely a great blessing for the Sky Pillar sect. Chu Tianqing looked at Ji Tianqing with burning eyes and said solemnly, "Tianqing, This is your destiny and also your good fortune. You must cherish it and work harder. You, Yunyao, and Yen, are all my disciples. They are also the disciples that I value the most. In the future, after I abdicate, you will have to take charge and assist the Sky Pillar sect's 1,000-year-old foundation. You must understand that you are shouldering the hopes of me and thousands of people in the sect. Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood. He cupped his hands and said, "Don't worry, Master. This disciple will definitely not let you down." Very good. Chu Tianqing nodded in satisfaction and said with a pleasant expression, "Tianqing, Yunyao, you are both tired and sleepy. Go and rest." This disciple will take his leave. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao bowed to him and turned to leave the Sky Pillar Palace. The two walked out of the palace and stepped side by side into the square in front of the palace. They talked in low voices as they walked. It was early in the morning, and the square was empty. There was only fallen leaves and dust on the ground. After getting along with each other for a few days, the distance between Ji Tianqing and Yunyao had been shortened again. The way the two of them strolled side by side was somewhat intimate, but neither of them noticed it, nor did they feel that there was anything unusual or inappropriate about it. And in the corner of the square, behind a tall statue, there was a young man dressed in gray clothes, spying on the two of them with gloomy eyes. This young man in gray linen clothes was obviously a part-time disciple. He was holding a wooden bucket in his left hand and a rag in his right. He was wiping the dust off the statue. His figure was thin, and his handsome face was sickly pale. His temperament was somewhat feminine. He was Bai Wuchen. Ever since he lost to Ji Tianqing in the Heaven List tournament and recovered from his injuries, he had no choice but to fulfill the terms of the bet. He took off his inner sect white robe and put on a gray linen robe to become a servant disciple. For nearly a month, he had to clean the square and several palaces of the Red Firmament Peak every day. Just now, Bai Wuchen was cleaning up when he heard footsteps and voices coming from the square. He instinctively glanced over and saw Ji Tianqing and Yunyao. He saw the two of them walking side by side intimately like a couple in love. His body stiffened instantly, and his face became paler. His eyes were as cold as ice. It's only been 2 months since we last met, and Ji Tianqing has undergone a complete transformation. It's as if he's a completely different person. Ji Tianqing's high-spirited appearance made him feel ashamed of his inferiority. Ji Tianqing's strength and status were something that a servant disciple like him could only look up to. No matter how unwilling he was, no matter how angry and jealous he was, he had to admit a fact. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao were a perfect match. They were a match made in heaven. Thinking of this, his face twisted in anger, and his eyes were almost spitting fire. No. Yunyao is mine. Ji Tianqing. You damn bastard. How dare you steal my sweetheart? I'll never let you go. Bai Wuchen glared viciously at Ji Tianqing and roared silently in his heart. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao walked side by side through the square in front of the palace. Their figures gradually disappeared. The two of them did not notice that there was a servant disciple hiding behind a statue in the corner of the square with a ferocious expression. After leaving the square in front of the palace, the two of them stopped at the same time. Ji Tianqing looked at Yunyao's beautiful face and said, "Eldest senior sister, I'm going to the Grand Peace Palace later to visit old Master Xiang." Yunyao nodded. "Go ahead then. I won't go with you." "Okay, you've worked hard these few days. Go back and have a good rest." Ji Tianqing reminded her and waved goodbye to her. After the two of them parted, Yunyao went straight back to the White Cloud Hall to rest. Ji Tianqing went down the Red Cloud Peak and hurried to the Grand Peace Palace. When he arrived at the entrance of the Grand Peace Palace, the mute sword slave was sweeping the fallen leaves in front of the door. Seeing that he had arrived, the sword slave was obviously startled. Then, he squeezed out a smile and nodded at him. Ji Tianqing also nodded at the sword slave. Then, he stepped through the door and entered the Grand Peace Palace. When he entered the third courtyard and saw Xiang Wuji was still as usual. He was holding a white jade kettle and watering the herbs while humming a tune. Ji Tianqing came to the courtyard with a smile in his eyes. He cupped his hands and bowed to Xiang Wuji. "Greetings, Senior Xiang." Xiang Wuji stopped watering the herbs and turned to look at him with a mocking smile on his old face. "Kid, do you still remember your surname?" "Huh?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and smiled playfully. "Old master, are you blaming me for not visiting you for a long time?" Xiang Wuji rolled his eyes in annoyance. He put away the jade kettle and turned to walk into the guest hall. "Kid, you've been so happy recently and you've been flirting with that girl Yunyao. You're about to become famous in the heavenly stellar region and bring home a beauty. How would you remember an old man like me?" Xiang Wuji's tone was a bit strange. He was purposely mocking Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing did not feel awkward. He followed him into the guest hall and said playfully, "You've been taking care of the plants all day. You're so carefree. How would I dare to disturb you? Then again, there have been a lot of things going on recently. I really can't leave. You're so magnanimous, so don't be so narrow-minded." Xiang Wuji sat down on the rattan chair. He took out a green wine gourd and drank a mouthful. Then, he gave a cold laugh. "Yo, I haven't seen you for half a month and you've grown even more. You dare to call this old man narrow-minded?" Ji Tianqing hurriedly changed the topic, trying to evade the topic. "Half a month? I haven't come to the Graden Palace in 2 months." Xiang Wuji glared at him in annoyance. "Nonsense. Half a month ago, you were lying unconscious in the spiritual medicine hall. This old man even went to help you heal twice." So it's like this." Ji Tianqing finally understood. He smiled and said, "Thank you, elder, for saving me. Don't give me that." Xiang Wuji curled his lips and said in annoyance, "Kid, you didn't die from Gao Yi's palm, but you scared this old man half to death. You finally recovered from your injuries and you went to the Dragon Mountain to break the array. Now, you're still alive and kicking. You even broke through to the Yuan Dan stage. Kid, how is your luck so good?" Ji Tianqing looked at him with a faint smile. He did not refute. He understood Xiang Wuji very well. He knew that Xiang Wuji had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. He liked to nag when he had nothing to do. As expected, Xiang Wuji said with a stern face, "Kid, don't forget. You are the direct disciple of the sect leader. In the future, you will inherit the position of sect leader. This old man and your master have high hopes for you. We don't want to see you in danger. What if an accident happens one day and you lose your little life? Remember this for this old man. In the future, if you encounter a life-threatening situation, stay as far away as you can. Let others take care of it." Chapter 372. After Xiang Wuji finished nagging, Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded, replying with a sentence. "Old master, thank you for your care and love. I will remember your advice." Seeing him humbly accept his advice, Xiang Wuji was even more worried. "You brat. Don't just agree, I think you don't even remember it." Ji Tianqing saw that he was going to continue lecturing him and quickly changed the topic. "That's right, old master, I came to visit you today because I have something to ask." Xiang Wuji finally stopped. He glanced at him and asked, "What is it? Alchemy or setting up formations?" "Neither." Ji Tianqing shook his head and said seriously, "I want to ask you about the last few moves of the Flying Star Sword technique." Xiang Wuji frowned and looked at him out of the corner of his eyes. He shook his head and said, "Even though you have a great opportunity and your power has increased to the Yuan Dan realm, the last few moves can only be learned by those in the Sky Yuan realm." Ji Tianqing quickly said, "No problem, you can just teach it to me. I will learn it as I see fit." "Oh, you brat, you have quite the tone. You don't want to give up?" Xiang Wuji raised an eyebrow, a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Ji Tianqing said without changing his expression, "No matter if I succeed or not, I just want to try my best and think of a way to increase my power." Xiang Wuji frowned and then had an idea. He smiled and said, "All right, since you have the courage, then we can make a bet. I will teach you the complete flying star sword technique. If you cannot learn it, then stay in the Great Peace Palace and sweep the floor for me for a month." Ji Tianqing raised an eyebrow and showed a confident smile. "Then what if I can learn it?" Xiang Wuji snorted coldly and said, "Humph. If you can learn it, then I will help you increase the power of the little black dragon and the little fox, and let them return to the Yuan Dan realm." Hearing this, Ji Tianqing nodded without hesitation and said, "Deal." He, since you don't believe it, then I won't be polite." Xiang Wuji grinned, put away the green wine gourd, and stood up with a solemn expression. He raised his right palm and secretly circulated his true essence, silently executing a secret technique of the profound way. A moment later, a dazzling white light gathered in his palm and condensed into a bean-sized ball of light. This ball of dazzling white light was the essence that Xiang Wuji had condensed using a secret technique. It contained the complete flying star sword technique. When martial arts experts impart their skills to others, they don't need any secret manuals. Experts use profound Dao secret arts to condense the memories and experiences in their minds into balls of light and impart them to others. Xiang Wuji slowly raised his right palm and placed it on Ji Tianqing's forehead. The white ball of light immediately entered Ji Tianqing's mind. Suddenly, a huge amount of information appeared in Ji Tianqing's mind. He was shaken by the boundless amount of information, and his consciousness became a little blurry. He quickly sat cross-legged on the ground and circulated his energy to refine the ball of white light, absorbing and comprehending the flying star sword technique. Xiang Wuji sat back on the rattan chair and smiled as he watched him cultivate. Then, he took out the wine gourd and drank. As time passed, Ji Tianqing's consciousness was immersed in the flying star sword technique. He was fully focused on comprehending the sword technique. His consciousness merged with the ball of white light and was immediately immersed in it. He saw a special technique imparting scene. In the scene was a green grassland. On the left was a clear lake, and on the right was 1,000 zhang tall mountain. In the sky above the grassland, there was an old man in a purple robe, with a powerful aura. It was Xiang Wuji. Xiang Wuji stood proudly in the sky and said in a serious tone, "The flying star sword technique is a heaven origin level sword technique created by Wuji Zhenren. There are 5 moves in total. This sword technique is the culmination of all that I have learned in my life. It combines the sword techniques of 39 sword sects on the continent. When cultivated to perfection, it has the power to change the sky and the sun, to pluck the stars and the moon." Ji Tianqing's consciousness was focused on the scene. When he heard Xiang Wuji's bragging, he couldn't help but want to laugh. Even though a heaven origin level cultivator was powerful, there was a limit to the power of his martial arts. At most, he could break mountains and rivers. As for the power to change the sky and pluck the stars and the moon, it was already comparable to a deity. It was far beyond a heaven origin level cultivator. Then, Xiang Wuji said in a serious tone, "The first move of the flying star sword technique, 1,000 feather blade." As he spoke, Xiang Wuji formed a sword spell with both hands and released 3 flaming sword auras. They pierced towards the mountain on the right. Each of the sword auras was 10 meters long. They were extremely powerful and quickly pierced through the forest on the mountain. In just 5 seconds, the 3 flaming sword auras had pierced through the forest 1,000 times. The forest on the mountainside was burned to ashes. After performing the first move, Xiang Wuji said in a serious tone, "The second move, Wind Thunder Strike." He then used all of his power and released 2 giant golden sword auras towards the grassland in front of him. The 2 20-meter-long sword auras collided with each other. They turned into a giant thunderbolt and slashed towards the grassland. Boom! A 100-meter-wide crater was created in the ground with a loud sound. Mud and grass were sent flying in all directions. Then, Xiang Wuji performed the third move, Red Dragon Flash. He released a gigantic sword light that was over 100 meters long, and actually split the 1,000-meter-tall mountain in half with a single slash. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing understood that this was the real power of the red dragon flash when Xiang Wuji used all of his power. He had already mastered the first 3 moves of the flying star sword technique. Then, when Xiang Wuji performed the 4th move, he paid extra attention to it. The 4th move, water split. Xiang Wuji shouted in a low voice. He formed a sword spell with both hands and used all of his power. He formed a giant sword aura that was 100 meters long. He performed the spell and controlled the sword aura to slash towards the clear lake on the left. With a deafening boom, the heaven-cleaving sword of light extended to several thousand meters long. It erupted with devastating power, cleaving the lake in half. The clear lake water was split apart and a 1,000-meter-long gully appeared on the surface of the lake, revealing the bottom of the lake. After a long while, the gully began to close up. The lake water that was split apart began to close up again and calm down. Ji Tianqing's heart was beating fast. He was both shocked and excited. He memorized the sword formula of the 4th move, water flow severance, and secretly analyzed it. Just then, Xiang Wuji said in a serious tone, "Next is the last move of the flying star sword technique, shatter the mountain and river." As his voice fell, he slowly waved his palms and made a mysterious gesture. His entire body lit up with multicolored light that shot into the sky. In the next second, his silhouette flashed in the sky. His hands continued to form giant sword auras that shot in all directions. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The entire grassland and the sky were engulfed by the sword auras. Everything became dazzling and chaotic. When tens of thousands of sword auras exploded at the same time, the terrifying power was enough to destroy the heaven and earth. Chapter 373. After the 5 moves of the flying star sword technique were displayed, the image disappeared. Ji Tianqing's consciousness returned to his body, and he began to study and comprehend the last 2 moves of the sword technique. The 2 sword techniques, water flow split and mountain and river smash, truly had the terrifying power to split rivers and shatter mountains. Without a doubt, this was a sword technique that only a heaven origin powerhouse could perform. If Ji Tianqing was only at the 9th level of the mystic comprehending stage and had not refined the heavenly star pearl, he would not be able to cultivate these 2 sword techniques. However, after refining the heavenly star pearl, his strength skyrocketed to the 3rd level of the origin core stage, and he merged with the Kenshin bloodline. His innate talent reached the limit of the human race. After concentrating on comprehending for 12 hours, he actually comprehended the essence of the 2 sword techniques and successfully learned them. Although he was only at the origin core stage, his Kenshin bloodline was extremely heaven-defying, allowing him to possess an inhuman comprehension ability. He could master any sword art in the world with twice the results with half the effort. After 12 hours, it was already late at night. The night sky was filled with stars, scattering starlight for millions of miles, covering the courtyard with a layer of bright moonlight. Xiang Wuji was still lying on the rattan chair. He was drunk and snoring rhythmically. Swoosh. Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. He stood up, dusted his sleeves, and turned to look at Xiang Wuji beside him with a smile on his face. Old master is still guarding here after drinking too much. Is he afraid that something will happen to me while I'm comprehending the sword technique? He muttered in his heart, walked to Xiang Wuji's side, and called out softly, "Old master, wake up. I've finished cultivating." Xiang Wuji was sleeping soundly when he was immediately awakened. He opened his eyes with a dazed expression, and asked in a muffled voice, "What? You're getting married?" Ji Tianqing looked at him speechlessly, and decided not to talk to someone who was not awake yet. Xiang Wuji shook his head to clear his head. Only then did he wake up. He raised his head to look at Ji Tianqing and asked angrily, "You've finished cultivating? Have you finished cultivating? If you haven't, then go to the woodshed and sweep the fields for this old man for a month." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and revealed a confident smile. He said in a playful tone, "Old master, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you this time. You'll have to sweep the floor yourself." After saying that, he turned around and jumped into the courtyard, starting to perform the fourth move of the flying star sword technique. Old master, watch carefully. He put his index and middle fingers together, straight as a sword. He performed the flying star sword technique and activated 30% of his true essence. In an instant, his entire body surged with sharp sword intent that shot into the sky, and his eyes became sharp and fierce. Water split. Ji Tianqing suddenly let out a cold shout and released a 3-meter-long golden sword light. With the power to split the sky and earth, it fiercely slashed at the woodshed in the corner of the courtyard. Boom! With a muffled sound, the woodshed made of limestone bricks was instantly split into 2 halves by the huge sword aura. The entire woodshed was split in the middle, but it did not collapse. All that was left was a deep trench in the ground. The bricks and tiles on both sides of the trench were undamaged. There was not even a crack. To an Origin Core stage practitioner, it wasn't a difficult thing to destroy the woodshed with a single sword strike. However, to split the woodshed in half like Ji Tianqing did, without damaging the other bricks and tiles, was far too difficult. Only when one's control of true essence had reached a certain level could one do it. Xiang Wuji immediately sobered up. He stared at the trench in the woodshed, his eyes filled with shock. He did not speak. He did not praise Ji Tianqing, nor did he mock him. Ji Tianqing used 30% of his energy again and continued to perform the 5th move of the flying star sword technique. 5th move, shatter the mountains and rivers. He slowly raised his palms as golden and crimson red flames surged out of his body and shot into the sky, erupting with peerlessly violent and fierce sword intent. In the next moment, his body flashed back and forth in the yard. He waved his palms, releasing golden and crimson sword aura that covered the sky. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Hundreds and thousands of powerful sword rays immediately filled the entire courtyard. Seeing this, Xiang Wuji frowned. He waved his palms, releasing a ray of yellow light that turned into a giant shield that covered the entire yard. Almost at the same time, Ji Tianqing released thousands of sword auras. They exploded with their strongest power. Boom! Amidst the deafening noise, the courtyard with a radius of 30 meters was filled with golden and red light, turning it into a chaotic mess. The powerful and violent sword aura shattered the stone floor, 2 large trees, and a few stone benches in the courtyard, turning them into scorched earth and ruins. After a long while, the muffled sound finally dissipated. The shaking ground finally calmed down. As the true essence disappeared, Ji Tianqing's figure appeared. He stood proudly in the middle of the yard. A satisfied smile flashed across his eyes. At this time, Xiang Wuji waved his hand and removed the shield that enveloped the yard. He shouted angrily, "Little bastard! Do you want to tear down this old man's yard?" As he scolded, he rushed into the yard with quick steps. He picked up several branches that were pitch black like charcoal from the shattered ground. He revealed a pained expression and pretended to be furious as he glared at Ji Tianqing. He shouted, "This old man's azure spirit tree couldn't escape your fiendish clutches in the end. It was utterly destroyed by you, punk." Back then, when Ji Tianqing came to the Grand Peace Palace to sweep the floor for the first time, the little black dragon created a tornado, blowing off the leaves of several azure spirit trees. Now that several months had passed, the azure spirit trees grew lush branches and leaves again with much difficulty. In the end, Ji Tianqing unleashed a shatter the mountains and rivers, directly burning the few azure spirit trees into charcoal. Seeing Xiang Wuji's sorrowful and indignant appearance, Ji Tianqing squeezed out a hint of a slightly awkward smile. Old man, this was purely a mistake. I just slipped up. Pooh. Slip up my ass. Xiang Wuji spat crossly and said with a straight face, "Either way, you have to compensate this old man. Sweep the floor in the Grand Peace Palace for a month." Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and said with a playful tone, "Old man, as the saying goes, a bet is a bet. You can't renege on the debt, right?" "What's called reneging on the debt?" Xiang Wuji glared at him and explained, "Hand over the little black dragon and the little fox." This old man will help them recover their strength. But, you must be an odd job worker for this old man in the Grand Peace Palace for a month as compensation. Ji Tianqing frowned and mused for a moment. He instantly guessed something and asked probingly, "Old man, you insist on making me stay in the Grand Peace Palace for a month. Could it be that something will happen in the near future?" A glimmer of light flashed across Xiang Wuji's eyes, and he flatly denied, "No. There definitely will be." Ji Tianqing's eyes stared at him. His gaze was clear and deep, as if wanting to see through him. Xiang Wuji ignored him and turned to walk into the hall. Ji Tianqing hurriedly followed up and asked, "Old master, what's the matter? Can you not hide it from me?" Xiang Wuji stopped and turned to look at him. He said in a serious tone, "You really want to know?" "Of course." Ji Tianqing nodded without any hesitation. His expression was very firm. Xiang Wuji was silent for a moment before saying in a low voice, "I can tell you. At least you can be prepared in advance. 4 days ago, the Central State Imperial Court sent an imperial edict. The emperor will arrive in 5 days. The imperial edict said that the emperor will come to our sect this time to take care of the situation in the heavenly stellar region and also to see the candidates for the heavenly consort. Our sect is the leader of the heavenly stellar region and a subject of the Central State Imperial Court. We can only obey the imperial edict. When the emperor arrives, our sect can only warmly welcome him and do our best to entertain him. Tianqing, you should understand what this old man means, right?" Chapter 374. Ji Tianqing knew very well that although the Sky Pillar sect was the overlord of the Tianshan region, they were also a subject of the imperial court of Zhongzhou. The emperor was ordered to come to the Sky Pillar sect and was the most distinguished guest. The Sky Pillar sect could only do their best to entertain and take care of him. The emperor came to the Tianshan region this time not only to preside over the overall situation, but also to see the heavenly consort candidate, Yun Yao. The Sky Pillar sect could not disobey the imperial court's orders and had to let Yun Yao be examined and chosen by the emperor. However, everyone in the Sky Pillar sect knew that Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao were a pair and were a good couple. The emperor coming to choose the heavenly consort was equivalent to snatching Yun Yao from him. Xiang Wuji cared about his feelings and was afraid that he would not be able to hold back his impulse, so he wanted to keep him in the Graden Palace for a month. After a month, regardless of whether Yun Yao became the heavenly consort or not, the emperor would have to leave the Sky Pillar sect. In that case, at least he would not meet the emperor head-on and have conflicts. This was Xiang Wuji's intention. Ji Tianqing naturally understood. He nodded with a serious expression and cupped his hands at Xiang Wuji. "Old master, thank you for telling me this news." Xiang Wuji nodded slightly. His heart was a bit heavy as he comforted him in a low voice. "Kid, I also hope that lovers will get married. I want to see you and Yin Yao get married. But the imperial court is the leader of the human race and the emperor is so noble and dazzling. If the emperor really chooses Yun Yao, that is your fate. When the time comes, don't be rash. No matter how strong you are, you will only die if you fight against the imperial court. Unless you can become a strong person like Kenshin, then you can make the imperial court bow their heads and be polite." Hearing this, Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood and did not say anything. However, his eyes were filled with determination and unyielding. He thought to himself, if the fate of eldest senior sister and I is really so rough and difficult to reunite, I will never give up. I must master Kenshin's secret art and become as strong as Kenshin. At this moment, Xiang Wuji patted his shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Leave the little fox and the little black dragon here. You can go back and rest. 5 days later, when the emperor arrives at our sect, we must all go and welcome him." Ji Tianqing removed the 100 treasures brocade pouch from his waist and passed it to Xiang Wuji. After bidding farewell, he turned and walked out of the yard, quickly leaving Great Peace Palace. Xiang Wuji held the 100 treasures brocade pouch and stood under the eaves. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh heavily. Tianqing, oh Tianqing, life is all up to fate. Once the 8 characters are set, it's hard to change them. Wealth and honor have always been decided by heaven. Why do you have to go against Tianqing's fate in marriage? If you want to achieve great things and become a martial arts expert, it's not enough to just have extraordinary talent. You also need to be able to endure. However, Ji Tianqing had already left in a hurry, so he couldn't hear his sighs and sighs. Furthermore, even if Ji Tianqing heard his words, would he really accept his fate? Half an hour later, Ji Tianqing returned to Tianqing's yard. Although when Xiang Wuji told him the news of the emperor's arrival, he was nervous and felt a sense of danger. But when he returned to Tianqing's yard, his heart had calmed down. Although the emperor is of noble birth and has unparalleled talent, reaching the sky origin realm in his 20s, he can be called the #1 genius of the human race. But I may not be weaker than him. I have merged with the Kenshin bloodline and cultivated Kenshin's secret techniques. I may reach the sky origin realm in my 20s. He sat cross-legged on the bed and silently analyzed, his heart filled with confidence. Furthermore, eldest senior sister has no interest in the heavenly consort position and has no good feelings towards the emperor. I believe that she will not choose the emperor. Even if the emperor comes to our sect, in a short 10 days, they may not develop any feelings. Even if the emperor falls in love with eldest senior sister at first sight and wants to choose her as his heavenly consort, I will not let him take eldest senior sister away. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing's heart calmed down. He put this matter aside for the time being and started to cultivate without any distractions. In a cold and elegant room in White Cloud Hall, Yin Yao, who was wearing a white dress, was sitting on a disc array made of 1,000-year-old cold jade. Her hands were holding a spell on her knees, and she was meditating quietly with her eyes closed. The bright moonlight shone through the window grill and fell on her body, covering her with a faint layer of starlight. Her figure was hazy. It was late at night, and everything was silent. White Cloud Hall was silent. Suddenly, a palm-sized, light green bird flew in from the courtyard outside the window. This bird was round and chubby, and its round little head looked a little cute. Its green feathers were bright and shiny, and it was emitting invisible spiritual qi. Its brown eyes were very lively. Swoosh! The green bird circled around the courtyard and looked around. Then, it saw Yun Yao in the room. Her lively eyes were filled with joy. She quickly flew to the window and wanted to get in through the window grill. However, the window grill's hole was small. It twisted its chubby body and struggled a few times before it got through. After getting into the room, it flapped its wings happily and flew toward Yun Yao excitedly. Yao Yao! Yao Yao! The green bird flew to Yun Yao's side and called out to her in a clear voice. Its voice was like a 10-year-old girl's, and its tone was cheerful and affectionate. Yun Yao woke up immediately. When she opened her eyes, she saw the green bird in front of her. After being stunned for a moment, a surprised smile appeared on her pretty face. Little spiritual bird, why are you here? Did your family send you to deliver a message? Yes, yes. The little spiritual bird quickly nodded and jumped onto the stone table next to Yun Yao. It spread its wings and lay on the table, looking exhausted. Ah, I flew all the way here from Cloud Spirit Palace for 5 days and 5 nights. My old waist is exhausted. Let me catch my breath first. Yun Yao couldn't help but smile when she saw the little spiritual bird's cute and innocent appearance. She flicked her slender fingers and injected a wisp of true essence into the little spiritual bird's body. The little spiritual bird immediately became much more energetic. Little spiritual bird, tell me, who are you delivering a message for this time? The little spiritual bird quickly stood up and shook its wings. It said seriously, Yao Yao, it's a message from Madam. Oh. A message from Mother? Quickly read it to me. Yin Yao raised her eyebrows and a hint of joy appeared in her eyes. She supported her chin with both hands and looked at the little spiritual bird. Her pretty face was full of anticipation. The little spiritual bird imitated Madame Yun's tone and said earnestly, Yao Yao, the Tianshan region seems to be a little unstable recently. Mother is worried, so I asked the little spiritual bird to deliver a message to you. At the end of last month, it was your grandmother's 300th birthday. The Empress and the Emperor came to Cloud Spirit Palace with gifts for your grandmother's birthday. After the banquet, the Empress and Mother talked privately about the Emperor's concubine selection. The Empress likes you very much and wants Mother to persuade you to marry the Emperor and become a heavenly concubine. Hearing this, the smile on Yun Yao's pretty face disappeared and her eyes became a little serious. The little spiritual bird used Madame Yun's tone and continued, Mother knows that you and the Emperor have known each other since you were young. Although he has feelings for you, you have no feelings for him. If it weren't for hiding from him, you wouldn't have left Zhongzhou and hid in the remote Tianshan region. Yao Yao, Mother won't persuade you to agree, and I won't force you. You are the eldest daughter of the Yun family and will inherit the position of Cloud Spirit Palace Master in the future. It's up to you to choose. Chapter 375. Originally, when Yunyao learned that the Empress and the Emperor had gone to the Cloud Soul Palace to celebrate the birthday and mentioned the Emperor's concubine selection, her expression was a little serious. After hearing the little spiritual bird's report, her mood became a lot better and a smile appeared on her pretty face. Mother loves me the most. Yunyao muttered to herself, and a trace of warmth and intimacy gushed out from her heart. After the little spiritual bird passed on Madame Yun's message, it stared at Yunyao. It tilted its round little head and asked, Yao Yao, do you have any words for Madam? Yes, of course. Yunyao smiled and nodded. Then, she said in a calm and gentle tone, Mother, I'm doing well in the Tianshan region. You and Father don't have to worry about me. In a few days, the Emperor will come to the Tianshan region. If he continues to pester me, I'll explain it to him and let him give up on this idea. After leaving the Cloud Soul Palace, I've been wandering in the Tianshan region for many years. I've gained a lot of experience and my strength has increased a lot. I won't be returning to the Cloud Soul Palace for a while. If I run into trouble that I can't solve, I'll send a message to Mother and Father for help. Mother, you don't have to worry. Mother, send my regards to Father. You two take care of yourselves. After speaking, she reached out and patted the little spiritual bird's head. She smiled and said, All right, I've finished speaking. Little spiritual bird, you should go back and report. The little spiritual bird nodded and said reluctantly, Yao Yao, then I'll go back to the Cloud Soul Palace. You have to come back soon too. Yes, go on. Yunyao replied and waved her hand to signal it to go back. The little spiritual bird flapped its wings and turned into a green spiritual light. It flew out of the window with a whoosh. Yunyao watched the little spiritual bird disappear into the night. She looked at the moonlight outside the window and thought calmly. After a while, she looked away. Her eyes and mood became as calm as water. She continued to meditate and cultivate. In the Tianjian sect, at the top of the Golden Jade Peak. Ever since the Divine Sword Peak had been destroyed by Chu Tiansheng, the Golden Jade Peak, where the spiritual medicine hall had been located, had become the main peak of the Tianjian sect. The Tianjian sect master and many elders and deacons built several new palaces on the Golden Jade Peak to serve as residences and halls for handling sect affairs. In a dimly lit secret room in the newly built Divine Sword Palace, the head of the Tianjian sect was sitting on a large chair made of fire jade. His expression was grave as he pondered. In the middle of the secret chamber in front of him stood two people. They were his right-hand men, Daoist Tianji and guest elder Huangfu. Honorable guest Huangfu reported solemnly, Sect Master, after 20 days of hard work, our disciples and servants have restored half of the Divine Sword Peak. The Tianjian sect master listened to his report with a calm expression and a gloomy look in his eyes. Ever since he had been injured by Chu Tiansheng, he had gone into seclusion to recuperate for more than half a month. Since then, his temperament and character had become increasingly gloomy. It was obvious that deep hatred and resentment were hidden in his heart. In the past, he was like an unsheathed treasured sword with a sharp and domineering aura. But now, he was like a gloomy and vicious viper, curled up in a cold corner. If he had the chance, he would attack fiercely. A moment later, after Honorable Guest Elder Huangfu finished his report, the Tianjin sect master nodded slightly and said in a low and hoarse voice, "Pass down the order. Let everyone continue to work hard and restore the divine sword peak as soon as possible." Understood. Honorable Guest Elder Huangfu saluted and left. Then, Daoist Tianji stepped forward and held the silver horsetail whisk. His expression was calm as he said, "Sect Master, tonight we received news that the great array of the Dragon Mountain tomb was broken by the Sky Pillar sect a few days ago. Sect Master, our time has finally come. It's time to seek justice from the Sky Pillar sect. A debt of blood must be paid in blood." Daoist Tianji's emotions and tone revealed deep hatred and passion. It could invisibly stir up the blood of the crowd. The Tianjin sect master frowned. His eyes flashed with a cold light and surged with killing intent. However, he shook his head and said in a low voice, "Our revenge will be taken sooner or later. The Sky Pillar sect will definitely be destroyed by our sect. But now is not the time. We must endure. The Emperor of the Middle State Imperial Court will soon arrive at the Tianshan region. The Emperor has ordered the Emperor to come to the Tianshan region to preside over the situation. Let's wait and see if the Emperor can bring justice to our sect. If the Imperial Court wants to protect the Sky Pillar sect, we can only attack them after the Emperor leaves the Tianshan region." Daoist Tianji frowned. He was somewhat disappointed and disdainful. "Stupid and cowardly fellow. Your lair has been destroyed, but you can still endure and wait for others to help you seek justice. What can a cowardly piece of trash like you do when you watch a great opportunity slip away? What can you accomplish?" Although he thought this in his heart, he didn't show it on his face. He cupped his hands and bowed to the Tianjin sect master. He said seriously, "Sect master is right. This is the safest way." After he finished speaking, he bowed to the Tianjin sect master and left the secret room. The next morning, Ji Tianqing finished his cultivation and walked out of his room. The sun had just risen, and the mountain peak was still filled with a thin mist. There was still sparkling dew between the branches and leaves of the roadside flowers. He walked out of the Tianqing courtyard, breathed in the fresh air, and walked around the mountain peak. When he walked to the inner sect square, he saw several odd job disciples in gray linen clothes cleaning the square and putting up colorful paper and lanterns. The odd job disciples were whispering to each other as they worked. Ji Tianqing was far away from them, but his hearing was excellent, so he naturally heard them clearly. A skinny odd job disciple was whispering to the others, "You guys work faster. Don't make any mistakes. This time, a great benefactor is coming." Another odd job disciple, who was younger and only in his teens, asked curiously, "Senior brother, isn't our sect the #1 sect in the Tianshan domain? What kind of benefactor is more noble than our sect?" "Humph. You don't understand, do you?" The skinny disciple said proudly, "I heard from the deacons in the sect that a big shot from the Imperial Court will be coming to our sect soon. It is said that the benefactor is called the Son of Heaven. Even our sect master and elders have to bow to him when they see him." Hearing what he said, the other odd job workers all had shocked expressions on their faces as they let out cries of surprise. "The Son of Heaven? Is it the Crown Prince of the Imperial Court? Even our sect master and elders have to bow to him? Isn't the identity of the Son of Heaven too noble? Where is the Imperial Court? Why have I never heard of it? Is our sect also under the jurisdiction of the Imperial Court?" The thin odd job disciple was too lazy to explain too much. He lowered his voice and said, "You won't understand even if I tell you these things. Don't ask so much. Anyway, just follow me and finish the work that the deacons have given you. In the next few days, we not only have to clean up the inner sect palace, but also decorate it with lanterns and decorations." Chapter 376. Ji Tianqing frowned when he heard the discussion of the few janitor disciples. He thought for a moment before remembering that there were still 4 days before the Son of Heaven would arrive at the Sky Pillar sect. When he thought up to here, he lost interest in taking a stroll and turned around to return to the Tianqing courtyard. The Sky Pillar sect was busy decorating with lanterns and decorations. These things were arranged by the elders and deacons, and the janitor disciples completed them. It didn't have much to do with him. He couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these trivial matters. After returning to the Tianqing courtyard, he asked the maidservant, Xiao Shuang, to close the door and wouldn't receive any guests for the next few days. He said a few words to the maidservant, Xiao Shuang, then entered the secret room to circulate his cultivation. After refining the heavenly star pearl and fusing with the Kenshin bloodline, his strength skyrocketed to the third level of the origin core stage. It could be said to be a leap in improvement. On the path of the martial Tao, if one wanted to become a true expert, then one must have a solid foundation and gradually increase one's strength. He must cultivate calmly for a period of time to stabilize his martial Tao foundation and properly consolidate his strength and cultivation. In the next 3 days, the Sky Pillar sect's disciples and janitor disciples were busy. In a short 3 days, the enormous sect became completely new, and there were lanterns and decorations everywhere. The 9 mountain peaks, over 1,000 palaces, and courtyards were cleaned until they were clean and spotless. The thousands of janitor disciples were filled with excitement as they passionately discussed the Son of Heaven's imminent arrival. Many people had never heard of the Central State Imperial Court, nor did they know who the Imperial Monarch and the Son of Heaven were. Everyone only knew that the person who came to the Sky Pillar sect this time was a great figure with a supreme status, and he could collapse the Skystar region with a stomp of his feet. The warm and jubilant atmosphere lasted for an entire 3 days. On the evening of the 3rd day, group after group of experts arrived at the Sky Pillar sect's entrance. The guards guarding the entrance immediately recognized these experts. These experts were the sect leaders and chief disciples of the other 7 great sections. The Tianjian sect leader and guest elder Huangfu, Granny Shuiyu, Feng Min, sect leader Yan, Wuyu, and the others had all entered the Sky Pillar sect. The sect leaders of the various sects brought their chief disciples to the Sky Pillar sect, so they naturally had to welcome and pay respects to the Son of Heaven. The Sky Pillar sect had made the corresponding arrangements long ago, and arranged a few courtyards in the outer court for the sect leaders and disciples of the 7 sects to temporarily stay. After one night, a new day arrived. Today was the day that the Son of Heaven would arrive at the sky-bearing sect. Everyone in the sect was filled with curiosity and anticipation. They got up early in the morning to wait. Ji Tianqing also ended his closed-door cultivation. He walked out of the secret room and left the Tianqing courtyard. Half an hour later, he ascended the peak of Heaven Upholding Peak and arrived at the square outside Heaven Upholding Hall. At this time, dozens of people had already gathered in the square in front of the hall. They were standing in the square and chatting with each other. The person standing at the front was naturally Chu Tiansheng. Behind him stood a row of experts. They were the leaders of the 7 major sections. Further back in the 3rd row were the chief disciples of the various sections. Yin Yao was among them. The 4th row had the most people. There were more than a dozen people. 9 of them were elders of the Sky Pillar sect, and the others were elders of the various sections. Everyone was dressed neatly and stood in the middle of the field with solemn expressions. They looked at the sky in front of them, waiting for the arrival of the emperor. When Ji Tianqing arrived at the square, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. The gazes of the various sect leaders and chief disciples all looked at him in unison and converged on him. The few sect leaders were all heavenly origin stage experts, so they were naturally able to discern with a glance that Ji Tianqing's strength had already reached the 3rd level of the origin core stage. Instantly, the few sect leaders' faces went grim, and their eyes revealed shock. Granny Shuiyu, the 6 Harmony sect leader Yan, and the Pill Cauldron sect leader Qi were all filled with surprise and felt it was unbelievable. Besides being filled with shock, the 3 sect leaders of the True Martial sect, Windfire sect, and Thousand Autumns sect were also filled with dense jealousy. The Tianjian sect leader's mood was the worst. His chest was filled with rage, and his gaze that was gloomy like ice stared at Ji Tianqing. If looks could kill, Ji Tianqing would have been cut into pieces by his gaze. No one was able to believe that in a short period of a month, Ji Tianqing had actually broken through to the Origin Core stage and even reached the third level of the Origin Core stage. This was simply an unbelievable miracle. When they saw another genius that was as outstanding as Yunyao had appeared in the Sky Pillar sect, all the sect leaders felt an enormous pressure. Especially the Tianjian sect leader. He even secretly swore in his heart that he would definitely destroy the Sky Pillar sect as soon as possible. He would absolutely not give the Sky Pillar sect a chance to continue developing and strengthening, and he would not sit idly by and watch Ji Tianqing, this hidden danger, become a powerhouse. At that time, he would seek revenge from Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing walked into the square with a calm expression and stood still beside Yunyao. Both he and Yunyao didn't open their mouths to speak. The two of them glanced at each other and saw the deep meaning in each other's eyes. After a brief exchange of glances, the two of them looked ahead calmly and silently waited. The chief disciples of the various sects all noticed Ji Tianqing's abnormality, and they felt that he seemed to have changed into a different person, so they secretly sized him up and observed him. Time silently flowed by, and an hour quickly passed by. The morning sun gradually rose into the sky and sprinkled light golden sunlight onto the square before the hall. Right at this moment, a dragon's roar that shook the 9 heavens suddenly sounded out in the sky before Crimson Sky Peak. Roar! An incomparably huge golden figure, draped in light golden sunlight, galloped over from the distant sky like a golden stream of light. Everyone in the square immediately looked up at the sky in front of them with a solemn expression, and their gazes converged on the golden stream of light. Amidst the dazzling golden stream of light, there was an extremely majestic and mighty golden-scaled flood dragon with a body that was 1,000 meters long. The flood dragon had 2 huge dragon heads, and the antle-like dragon horns on its head shone with a brilliant golden light. Its 2 pairs of dark silver dragon eyes looked down at everyone in the square condescendingly, and its eyes revealed an aura of indifference to the common people. Although the golden-scaled flood dragon was still far away from everyone, its powerful dragon aura and sacred aura enveloped the entire Crimson Sky Peak, causing everyone to feel a strong sense of fear and awe in their hearts. 2 people stood on the back of the double-headed flood dragon, and they were looking down at everyone in the square. Standing in front was a handsome young man in his early 20s. He wore an exquisite golden robe, a square dragon and phoenix golden crown on his head, a purple gold belt inlaid with jade, and a pair of wind cloud boots on his feet. His entire body was filled with an incomparable aura of nobility. His fair and handsome face was as clear as jade, and even faintly glowed with a jade-like crystalline luster. He had sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, and a straight nose. His thin lips were tightly pursed, revealing a somewhat confident and indifferent temperament. A pair of clear eyes, as deep and vast as the sea of stars, flashed with quick-wittedness and wisdom. What a peerlessly handsome face, as if it was the work of a god. However, his figure was slightly thin and frail, and he did not have the burly body of an emperor, and the domineering aura of an emperor. Chapter 377. Although there was another person on the back of the double-headed dragon. It was a burly middle-aged man wearing golden armor. He was dressed like an imperial general. However, everyone in the square ignored the imperial general and focused their attention on the handsome young man. Everyone knew that the incomparably noble Son of Heaven had finally arrived at the Sky Pillar sect. The sect leaders and elders of the various sects were in awe, and their eyes were shining with excitement. The chief disciples of the various sects looked up at the Tianzi on the back of the golden dragon with deep reverence. Among the crowd, only 2 people's expressions remained unchanged. They were still calm and indifferent. These 2 people were Ji Tianqing and Yunyao. Swoosh! The double-headed dragon flew above everyone's head, bringing with it a powerful gust of wind and invisible pressure. The trees around the square were swaying from the strong wind, and the robes of the people in the square were also fluttering. The dragon circled twice above the square before rolling its 1,000-meter-long dragon body into 3 circles and slowly landing on the square. Boom! The moment the 5 dragon claws landed on the ground, 5 large pits appeared on the granite floor. Dense cracks appeared all around, and the entire mountain peak began to tremble. Everyone's pupils constricted, and they were secretly shocked. They were even more in awe of the legendary imperial court and the Tianzi. Swoosh! Swoosh! The Tianzi was the first to jump off the dragon's back. His figure flashed and landed on the square. The imperial general also followed his footsteps and landed on the square. He stood silently 3 steps behind the Tianzi. The Tianzi raised his left hand and waved at the double-headed golden dragon. The double-headed golden dragon let out a low roar. Its body flickered with golden light, and its body immediately shrank rapidly. In the blink of an eye, the 1,000-meter-long golden dragon body shrank to the extreme and turned into a dark gold thumb ring with 2 dragons playing with a pearl. It was worn on the Tianzi's left thumb. Only then did the Tianzi retract his left hand. He put his hands behind his back and walked towards the crowd with majestic steps. He stood 10 steps away from Chu Tiansheng and looked at the crowd calmly. His indifferent eyes only swept across Chu Tiansheng, the sect leaders, and the chief disciples in the first 3 rows. As for the elders of the various sects, they were all ignored by him. Of course, when his eyes swept over Yun Yao, he paused for a moment, and a smile that no one noticed flashed in his eyes. At this moment, everyone bowed in unison, clasped their hands together and bowed to the emperor. We, the martial artists of the Tianshan region, welcome the emperor. Greetings to the benevolent Saint Emperor. The voices of the crowd converged into a torrent of sound waves, reverberating in the air above the square, filled with reverence. The emperor nodded slightly without any expression on his face. He raised his hands and said with a calm voice, "Everyone, please don't stand on ceremony. Rise." Only then did everyone stand up, put down their hands, and stared at the Son of Heaven, closely examining his true appearance. Tianzi's gaze fell on Chu Tiansheng. His tone was calm and majestic as he said, "Is this the current sect master of the sky-bearing sect, Sect Master Chu Tiansheng?" Chu Tiansheng hurriedly cupped his hands in salute and said respectfully, reporting to the emperor, "It is this subject." The emperor nodded and didn't say anything. Chu Tiansheng hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, we are here to welcome your Majesty. We are here to listen to the orders of the imperial court, and also to see the emperor's true appearance. We are also looking forward to your Majesty coming down to preside over the overall situation of the Tianshan region. This subject has already arranged everything in the main hall. Your Majesty, please come to the main hall for a chat." After that, Chu Tiansheng bowed and stretched out his hand, making a please gesture. The Son of Heaven nodded and led the imperial generals to the main hall. Chu Tiansheng accompanied him on his left and right, leading the way for him. The sect masters, elders, and disciples followed closely behind. After 100 breaths, everyone entered the sky-bearing palace and took their seats in the main hall. At such a solemn moment and occasion, the arrangement of the seats was, of course, very particular. Of course, the emperor sat on the sect master's throne. The imperial guards stood beside him like stone sculptures, looking dignified and looking straight ahead. The sect masters and sect masters of the 8 major sects were divided into 2 rows, sitting on the left and right sides of the main hall. The one on the left was Chu Tiansheng, and the other 3 were Granny Shuaiyu, Sect Master Yen of the 6E sect, and Sect Master Qi of the Pill Tripod sect. The 4 sect masters on the right side of the main hall, with the Tianjian sect master as the leader, sat in the main seat. The other 3 were the sect masters of the True Martial sect, the Wind-Fire sect, and the Qianqiu sect. As for the elders and chief disciples of the various sects, they were not qualified to sit. They all stood behind their own sect masters. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao stood side by side behind Chu Tiansheng, Feng Min stood behind Granny Shuaiyu, and Wu Yu stood behind Sect Master Yen. Behind the Tianjian sect master, there was only a guest elder, Huangfu. After all, Shi Wenyu had died long ago, and the Tianjian sect had yet to appoint a new chief disciple. Tian Ziduan's dignified gaze swept across everyone present, and he said solemnly, "Fellow Taoists, I came to the Tianshan region under the orders of the imperial court to preside over the overall situation of the Tianshan region. Only by maintaining the stability of the Tianshan region can we ensure the peace and prosperity of our race, and that the people can live and work in peace and not be disturbed by the flames of war. Sect masters, you are in charge of the foundation of your sects and occupy the ancient star realm. Naturally, you have the responsibility to guard the peace of your region. I am here to preside over the overall situation, so I need all of you to cooperate well. The 8 sect masters nodded inwardly. They stared at Tian Zidwan with faint anticipation in their hearts. All of the sect masters were well aware of the conflict between the Tianjian sect and the Sky Pillar sect. Everyone secretly wondered what Tian Zidwan's attitude would be. How would he resolve this matter? At this moment, Tian Zidwan continued, I am new here and do not understand the situation. Sect masters, please introduce yourselves first. Chu Tianxing stood up first, cupped his hands, and bowed to Tian Zidwan, introducing himself. Immediately after, Granny Shui Yu, Sect Master Yan, Sect Master Qi, and the others all stood up and bowed, introducing themselves. A moment later, the 8 sect masters finished introducing themselves, and Tian Zidwan also remembered everyone's names and characteristics. He looked at Chu Tianxing and asked, Sect Master Chu, I received news a month ago that the Tianjian sect and your esteemed sect have some unresolved grievances that have even evolved to the point of fighting. I wonder if Sect Master Chu can dispel my doubts and tell me the origin of the grievances between the 2 sects, as well as the whole story. Chu Tianxing was startled. He obviously did not expect Tian Zidwan to act so swiftly and decisively, wanting to mediate the matter as soon as they met. Before he could speak, the Tianjian sect master stood up and quickly walked to the center of the hall. The Tianjian sect master bowed to Tian Zidwan and said indignantly, Greetings, Tian Zidwan. I am the Tianjian sect master, Gao Yi. Tian Zidwan, as the number 1 sect in the Tianshan region, the Sky Pillar sect has gone too far. Not only did they kill my disciples, but they also destroyed my sect's hundreds of years of foundation. Chapter 378. The sect master of the Tianjian sect, Gao Yu, stood in the Sky Pillar Hall and angrily complained about the Sky Pillar sect's crimes. He talked non-stop, starting from 100 years ago, all the way to his birthday banquet last month. Under his description, the Sky Pillar sect had completely turned into a tyrannical and arrogant evil sect that committed all kinds of crimes. Perhaps he was acting, or perhaps he was truly sad. When he talked about how Shi Wenyu was killed, how he was injured by Chu Tianxing, and how the divine sword peak was destroyed, he was still weeping. His tragic tone and cries could really move anyone who heard it and shed tears upon seeing it. When the sect masters and elders in the hall saw Gao Yu's appearance, their expressions became very complicated and many thoughts appeared in their minds. Granny Shui Yu looked at him coldly and sneered in her heart, Gao Yu, this shameless guy, he's really not afraid of losing face. In front of the sect masters and the emperor, he can actually act so miserably and realistically. It seems that he's already shameless in order to complain about the Sky Pillar sect. Sect Master Yan and Sect Master Qi also looked at Gao Yu with strange expressions. Their eyes were filled with contempt and disdain. This Gao Yu really doesn't care about his status and face. He's completely shameless. This guy can really act. He actually inverted right and wrong to falsely accuse the Sky Pillar sect. I hope the emperor won't be deceived by him. On the right side of the hall, the Thousand Autumns sect master, the True Martial sect master, and the Wind Fire sect master snickered in their hearts and agreed with Gao Yu's actions. In the hearts of the 3 sect masters, all kinds of thoughts appeared. Chu Tianxing must be stupid, right? He definitely didn't think that Gao Yu would directly complain in front of the emperor, right? Chu Tianxing, with the emperor present, let's see how you explain this time. The emperor doesn't know the inside story and will definitely be deceived by Gao Yu in this situation. Even if it's to appease Gao Yu, he will definitely blame or severely punish the Sky Pillar sect. Chu Tianxing's expression was naturally gloomy. His eyes were cold from the shameless Gao Yu and his hands were trembling. However, the emperor was sitting in the main seat and listening to Gao Yu's complaints expressionlessly. He couldn't rashly stand up to defend himself. In that case, if he quarreled with Gao Yi in public, not only would he not be able to clear his name, but it would also have the opposite effect. He did his best to suppress his anger, but a cold smile hung on his lips as he glared at Gao Yi, watching Gao Yi's performance. Finally, after a quarter of an hour, Gao Yi finished speaking. He waved his sleeves to wipe away the tears on his face, bowed deeply to the emperor, and begged, "Your Majesty, you must seek justice for me." The Thousand Autumns sect leader, the True Martial sect leader, and the Wind and Fire sect leader exchanged glances and hurriedly stood up to salute the emperor. They cupped their fists and said, "Your Majesty the Emperor, everything that sect leader Gao said just now is true. We are willing to testify for him." Tianzi had been silently listening to Gao Yi's words. There was no change in his expression on his handsome face. Seeing the three sect leaders step forward to testify for Gao Yi, an imperceptible light flashed in his eyes. He nodded lightly and said calmly, "Sect masters, please take your seats." Although sect leader Gao's experience makes one sigh, I am new here and am not clear about the grudges between the sects in the Tianshan region. This monarch cannot make any conclusions about this matter based on your one-sided statement. However, sect leader Gao, don't worry. I will investigate this matter as soon as possible and give you an answer. Tianzi's words and attitude were neutral. He wasn't deceived or influenced by Gao Yi at all. This made Gao Yi, the Thousand Autumns sect leader, and the others feel a little disappointed. However, they had already expected this result. They also guessed that Tianzi, as the number one genius of the human race, was a wise person and wouldn't easily believe the words of others. However, Gao Yi put on a pitiful expression and took the initiative to complain to Tianzi. No matter what, this would create a preconceived notion in Tianzi's mind. The Sky Pillar sect was strong and domineering, while the Tianjian sect was weak and pitiful, being bullied by the Sky Pillar sect. Thus, Gao Yi's goal was achieved. Immediately after, Tianzi turned to look at Chu Tiansheng and expressionlessly asked, "Sect Master Chu, do you have anything to say about what Sect Master Gao just said?" Chu Tiansheng immediately stood up and walked to the center of the hall. He said in a deep voice, "Reporting to your Majesty, Tianzi, what Gao Yi said was nonsense." He inverted black and white, confusing right and wrong, since Gao Yi had shamelessly made a scene in front of everyone and slandered the Sky Pillar sect in front of everyone in the hall. Tianzi didn't dare to offend the Sky Pillar sect. Of course, Chu Tiansheng wouldn't give the Tianjian sect any face. He mercilessly refuted Gao Yi's words and used extremely sharp words to denounce Gao Yi for being sinister and despicable. He refuted and explained everything that Gao Yi had said to Nye Tian. After a full half an hour, he finished explaining everything. Granny Shui Yu, sect leader Yan, and sect leader Qi all stood up and bowed to Tianzi, confirming that Chu Tiansheng's words were true. Gao Yi sat on the right without saying a word. His face was also livid with anger, and his eyes were filled with anger as he stared at Chu Tiansheng. Tianzi nodded expressionlessly and said calmly, "Sect leader Chu, please take a seat." The two sect leaders have different opinions about the same thing. They both have their own grievances and difficulties. It seems that the conflict between the two sects has been brewing for a long time. The grievances have accumulated over time and can no longer be easily resolved. In that case, please don't be impatient and wait patiently for a few days. After this emperor investigates clearly, I will naturally make a decision. At that time, this emperor will distinguish between right and wrong for the two sect leaders. Since Tianzi had spoken, Chu Tiansheng and Gao Yi couldn't say anything more. Naturally, they nodded in agreement. Next, Tianzi looked at the other sect leaders and asked if there were any grievances between the sects that were difficult to resolve. The sect leaders were silent and hesitant. No one took the initiative to speak, and no one stood up to complain. After all, the two strongest forces in the Tianshan region were the Sky-bearing sect and the Tianjian sect. The grievances between the two sects had developed to the point where they couldn't tolerate each other and were about to go to war. This time, Tianzi came to the Tianshan region mainly to resolve the grievances between the two sects and stabilize the overall situation. Although there were some grievances between the other 6 sects, they were all small frictions and conflicts. In this kind of situation, no one was willing to talk about those small matters. It would only make people laugh and might not be able to resolve it effectively. Seeing that everyone was silent, Tianzi didn't ask anything and said in a solemn tone, "Since the 6 sects are still harmonious, then this emperor is relieved. Next, this emperor will stay in the sky-bearing sect for a while to thoroughly investigate and resolve the grievances between the 2 sects. Sect leaders, please stay in the sky-bearing sect for a few days to help this emperor understand the situation and contribute to the peace and stability of the Tianshan region." Chapter 379. After the meeting ended, the sect leaders led their elders and chief disciples out of the towering sky hall. Everyone left the red firmament peak and returned to the courtyards on the mountainside of the towering sky peak to rest. In the towering sky hall, only Tianzi, the imperial general, Chu Tiansheng, Ji Tianqing, and Yunyao were left. Tianzi's gaze fell on Yunyao, and there was a touch of emotion in the depths of his eyes. He wanted to greet Yunyao and chat for a while, but there were others present in the hall, so it was not appropriate. Chu Tiansheng cupped his hands to Tianzi and said, "Your Majesty Tianzi, you have come all the way from Zhongzhou. The journey must be tiring, so you should rest early. I have arranged a residence for Your Majesty Tianzi. Please follow me." Tianzi nodded and walked to the Sky River Palace behind the towering Sky Hall under Chu Tiansheng's lead. After Chu Tiansheng and Tianzi left, Ji Tianqing and Yunyao walked out of the hall side by side. The two stopped at the entrance of the hall and looked at each other, but did not say anything. After saying goodbye to each other, the two left the towering Sky Hall and returned to their respective residences. For the whole day, the towering Sky sect was very lively and noisy. Countless disciples were talking about Tianzi and the double-headed golden dragon. Countless disciples witnessed the scene of the double-headed golden dragon descending from the sky and were shocked. Some people also saw Tianzi's appearance and aura. They said that he was so handsome that he did not look like a mortal. His temperament was as noble as a god and they worshipped him. Some people also heard that Tianzi lived in the Sky River Palace on the red firmament peak. If it were not for the fear of offending Tianzi, many disciples would have run outside the Sky River Palace to watch. For the whole day, Tianzi and the imperial general stayed in the Sky River Palace and did not appear again. After Tianzi rested for half a day, he asked the imperial general to find countless books and information. He quietly read the information and quickly understood the situation in the Tianshan region and the details of the 8 major sections. The people of the Heart Moon sect, Thousand Autumns sect, 6 Unity sect, and other major sects stayed in their respective courtyards. The people of the various sects waited patiently for news and for Tianzi to summon them. Without the Son of Heaven's order, they didn't dare to leave the Sky Pillar sect. The day passed quickly. At night, the Sky Pillar sect was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. A grand banquet was held in the sky-raising palace to welcome the Son of Heaven who had come from afar. All the sect leaders, elders, and chief disciples were fortunate enough to attend the banquet. During the banquet, the Tianjian sect master Gao Yi changed from his miserable and distressed appearance during the day to repeatedly toast the emperor. He flattered the Son of Heaven without leaving a trace, praising the Son of Heaven as a peerless hero that was rarely seen in the world. Of course, with the Son of Heaven's status, power, and talent, he could indeed be called the #1 genius of the human race. Even in the entire Tianxian land, Tianzi was one of the top few absolute geniuses. He was the true pride of the heavens. Chu Tiansheng and the other sect leaders were full of disdain for Gao Yi's actions. At the same time, on a mountain peak 25 kilometers east of the Sky Pillar sect, the bright moonlight shone on the mountain peak, covering it with a layer of hazy moonlight. On a giant rock on the mountain peak, a man and a woman were standing. They were looking at the Sky Pillar sect with cold eyes. The woman was about 2 meters tall. She wore a long black robe, a cloak, and a veil. Only a pair of dark red eyes could be seen. She was the Blood Moon Infanta. The middle-aged man standing next to her was also a demon. His body was frighteningly tall. He was more than 3 meters tall and had dark purple skin all over his body. This giant had a head full of long red hair and his entire body was covered with thick purple hair. He was not wearing any clothes and only had a black python apron wrapped around his waist. He was the Blood Moon Infanta's father, the leader of the Blood Demon tribe, the Blood Demon King. The father and daughter stood side by side and looked at the brightly lit Sky Pillar sect from afar. Cold murderous intentions surged in their eyes. Human worms of the Sky Pillar sect, it won't be long before this king turns all of you into ashes. The Blood Demon King drew back his lips and cursed with a cold tone. The Blood Moon Infanta nodded and asked in a deep voice, "Father, you have already studied the Sky Pillar sect's 9 dragon spirit vein map yesterday. Do you have any plans?" The Blood Demon King said in a cold tone, "Although I already know the 9 dragon spirit vein map like the back of my hand, the experts of various sects have gathered in the Sky Pillar sect. We can only continue to endure and cannot act rashly. I brought a soul crystal from the palace. This crystal was once one of the treasures of a certain sect in the Yong'an region. After I destroyed that sect, I kept this soul crystal until today. Now, it can finally be put to use." As he spoke, the Blood Demon King spread out his wide left hand. A silver crystal the size of an egg appeared in his palm. It flickered with a bright silver light. The Blood Moon Infanta stared at the soul crystal and said with a face full of curiosity, "Father, the high priest also mentioned the soul crystal and asked the Tianjian sect master to find a way to get one. It's a pity that the Tianjian sect master's disciple, Shi Wenyu, is too useless." Not only did he not get the soul crystal, but he was also heavily injured by Ji Tianqing and was on the verge of death. "Father, what are you going to do with this soul crystal?" The Blood Demon King drew back his lips and revealed a row of white fangs. He sneered and said, "Of course, I'm going to destroy the 9 dragon spirit vein in preparation for the birth of the Demon King. The soul crystal is the source of power for the Tianyuan array. It can also devour the power of the Tianyuan array and silently destroy the spirit vein array. Blood Moon, I'm going to sneak into the 9 dragon spirit vein array and use a secret technique to bury this soul crystal. The soul crystal will quietly devour the power of the 9 dragon spirit vein array and gradually destroy the structure of the spirit vein. After a month at most, the power of the 9 dragon spirit vein array will be so weak that it can no longer be maintained." The Blood Demon King sneered as he spoke of his plan. The Blood Moon Infanta nodded and praised, "Good. Father, you're going to sneak into the Sky Pillar sect alone. There are many Sky Prime experts in the Sky Pillar sect, so you must be careful." The Blood Demon King sneered in disdain, "There are only a few experts in the Sky Pillar sect that can match me. I also have the smoky umbrella, so how can I be discovered by them? What danger can there be? Blood Moon, you stay here and wait. I'll be back soon." After he finished speaking, he turned into a black mist and left the mountain peak, flying in the direction of the Sky Pillar sect. The Blood Moon Infanta stayed on the mountain peak and silently waited as she watched the black mist disappear into the night sky. After half an hour, the Blood Demon King arrived at the side of the Sky Pillar sect and arrived at the foot of the Jade Sword Peak. The invisible 9 dragon spirit vein array protected the entire Sky Pillar sect and also enveloped the Jade Sword Peak. The Blood Demon King took out the smoky umbrella and borrowed its power to quickly pass through the sect protecting array. Chapter 380. The Blood Demon King was a Sky Origin Realm expert, and with the smoky umbrella in his hand, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. He shuttled through the pitch-black underground without making any sound or emitting any demonic power fluctuations. Unless a Sky Origin Realm expert approached him, no one would be able to detect his aura. Although there were many Sky Origin Realm experts in the Sky-Bearing sect, they were all attending the banquet in the Sky-Bearing Palace. No one would have thought that someone would take the opportunity to invade. 15 minutes later, the Blood Demon King dived into the depths of the underground and quietly used a demonic secret technique to place the Spirit Soul Crystal in the Spirit Vein Array. The Spirit Soul Crystal was hidden very well and had fused with the array's aura. It was impossible for anyone to discover it. After doing all this, the Blood Demon King sneered and silently left the underground. 30 minutes later, he returned to the mountain peak 50 miles away from the sky-bearing sect and appeared beside the Blood Moon Infanta. Seeing that he had returned safely, the Blood Moon Infanta hurriedly asked, "Father, did the plan go smoothly?" "Of course it went smoothly." The Blood Demon King sneered confidently. "I have already placed the Spirit Soul Crystal in the depths of the Spirit Vein Array. After 1 month, the power of the Spirit Vein Array will be exhausted. At that time, even if the people of the sky-bearing sect discover the abnormality, it will be too late to remedy it. We can take the opportunity to destroy the seal and rescue the Demon King." The Blood Moon Infanta's blood boiled and she clenched her fists in excitement. "Great! Father, we will succeed soon." "Yes." The Blood Demon King nodded and said, "However, it is still too early to be happy. I still need to make more preparations." He warned the Blood Moon Infanta in a low voice, "Blood Moon, for the next few days, stay nearby and secretly pay attention to the sky-bearing sect's movements. If there is any news from the sky-bearing sect, you must immediately send a message to me. In addition, you must also pay attention to hiding. Don't be discovered by the people of the sky-bearing sect." "I understand." The Blood Moon Infanta nodded solemnly and asked in confusion, "Father, what are you going to do? Aren't you coming with me?" The Blood Demon King grinned and said in a playful tone, "I haven't been to the ancient star realm for many years. Since I've returned, I must ensure that the plan goes smoothly. This king has an old friend in the ancient realm. It's time to go see her." Hearing this, Blood Moon Infanta vaguely understood something. She nodded and didn't ask any more questions. After that, the Blood Demon King left the smoky net umbrella to her, turned into a black mist, and flew away. She remained alone at the peak of the mountain, sitting on a millstone and silently watching the bright lights of the Sky Pillar sect. The noisy and bustling night with undercurrents finally came to an end. The next morning, when the sun had just risen, there was still a faint layer of morning mist between the peaks of the sky-bearing sect. The jade ripple lake behind the heaven-upholding peak was also shrouded in a thin layer of mist, making it even more beautiful and mysterious than before. The clear water rippled in the lake, and the willow trees swayed gently on the shore. Not far away from the Spirit Herb Garden, there were still waves of fragrance from the plants. The scenery by the lake was really fresh and elegant. At this time, a young man and woman were taking a stroll on the bluestone path under the willow trees by the lake. The man was tall and handsome. He wore a brocade robe and a pair of gold-rimmed firewalking boots. His long hair was tied up with a jade crown, making him look like an immortal. There was no doubt that he was the son of heaven, Long Yunxiao. The woman beside him was wearing a long white dress. She had an extremely beautiful appearance and a cold temperament. She was Yunyao. Yesterday, Long Yunxiao had arrived at the sky-bearing sect for the first time. He had to accept the visits of the various sect masters, so he naturally had to dress up. He wore a golden robe and a crown. Today, he didn't plan to deal with sect matters. It was his private time, so he changed into casual clothes. Even so, he was still extraordinarily handsome, and his temperament was noble and graceful. The two strolled along the path by the lake. Although they were walking side by side, they maintained a distance of 2 steps between each other. This distance was just right. It didn't appear to be close, but it wasn't too distant either. It was a normal distance between ordinary friends. Long Yunxiao seemed to be in a good mood. He smiled and said in a gentle tone, "Yao Yao, I remember the first time I saw you was 9 years ago. That was at Uncle Yun's 100th birthday banquet. That night, you were wearing the water moon frozen star dress. Although you were still young, you were already a little beauty who suppressed the entire audience and stunned all the guests. I didn't expect that 9 years would pass in the blink of an eye. You've become a peerless beauty and the #1 genius of the Tianshan region. Time really flies." As Long Yunxiao spoke, his eyes revealed a look of reminiscence. A smile also appeared on his handsome face. Yunyao was still as calm as usual. Her temperament was cold and she didn't have much of a reaction. Son of heaven, you disturbed my sleep early in the morning and asked me to take a stroll by the lake. Are you trying to help me remember the past? There's no need to mention those things of the past. You should just get to the point. Long Yunxiao wasn't angry. Instead, a playful smile appeared on his face. Yao Yao, I didn't expect that after staying in the Tianshan region for a few years, your personality would change a little. You're not as cold as before. He knew very well that Yun Yao's personality was even colder in the past. She wouldn't say so much to him. Yun Yao frowned slightly but didn't say anything. Long Yunxiao continued, Yao Yao, I know that the reason why you left the Cloud Spirit Palace, left the central state, and came to this remote Tianshan region was to avoid me. But now, the Emperor and Mother are going to choose a concubine for me. They've chosen the 3 most outstanding candidates from the 9 regions. Coincidentally, you're one of them. Yao Yao, don't you think that this is fate and our destiny? Even if you ran to this remote Tianshan region to avoid me, you still have to reunite with me in the end. After saying that, he looked at Yun Yao with a gentle gaze. His face was full of tenderness. Yun Yao glanced at him and said indifferently, You should know that I don't believe in fate. I only believe that man can conquer the heavens. Of course, my fate is in my control. Also, I heard that the other 2 heavenly concubine candidates aren't bad either. In terms of looks, they're alluring beauties. In terms of talent, they're top geniuses. Why don't you consider them? A smile flashed across Long Yunxiao's eyes. He raised his eyebrows and said, Yao Yao, can I interpret your words as jealousy? Yun Yao looked at him indifferently and said coldly, You're thinking too much. Long Yunxiao said to himself, Yao Yao, you should know that from the first time I saw you, I've decided that you'll be my heavenly concubine. With such a beautiful woman like you, how could other women enter my eyes? Compared to you, they're all ordinary women. I know that you don't want to be my heavenly concubine, but it doesn't matter. I won't force you to do something you don't want to. Chapter 381. Yun Yao wasn't surprised by Long Yunxiao's attitude. Long Yunxiao had said this a few years ago, and it hadn't changed until now. She couldn't help but frown. She said calmly, Son of heaven, you know that it's impossible. Why are you wasting time on me? Long Yunxiao's voice was still gentle. With our talent and strength, we don't lack time. We can live for 300 to 500 years. I will always wait for you. Yin Yao glanced at him and didn't say anything else. Both of them were very firm. It was impossible to change each other's minds with just a few words. Since that was the case, Yin Yao didn't want to continue talking about this with him. She remained silent and strolled along the bluestone path by the lake. Her eyes were fixed on the misty lake. Long Yunxiao walked beside her and talked about some interesting past events. His eyes and tone were very gentle from beginning to end. No matter what Yun Yao's reaction was or what her attitude was, he was always gentle and gentlemanly. This had been the case for many years, and it hadn't changed even now. 15 minutes passed quickly. At this moment, a young man in a white robe walked over from the bluestone path in front of them. The young man in the white robe was also strolling by the lake. The two of them met unexpectedly. When Yin Yao saw the young man in the white robe walking over, her cold expression and eyes softened a lot. She greeted him. Junior brother Tianqing, good morning. Without a doubt, the young man in the white robe walking over was Ji Tianqing. After the banquet last night, he didn't sleep at all. He had been meditating and cultivating. When dawn came, he casually walked around the towering sky peak. Unknowingly, he arrived at the Jade Wave Lake at the back of the mountain. He did not expect to meet Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao, who was beside her, here. Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment. Then, he calmly walked in front of the two of them and greeted them with cupped fists. Greetings, Your Majesty. Eldest senior sister, the two of you sure are in a good mood. Are you here to admire the scenery of Jade Wave Lake so early in the morning? He calmly looked at Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao and chatted with them. His mood didn't change at all. Long Yunxiao looked at him and smiled. He nodded in return. However, Long Yunxiao was not familiar with him. He only knew that he was Chu Tianqing's personal disciple, so he did not speak to him. However, Yunyao walked to Ji Tianqing's side and stood face to face with him. She said in a gentle tone, "Junior brother Tianqing, Tianzi and I have known each other since we were young." This time, he was ordered to come to the Heavenly Star region to take charge of the situation. He also came to visit me on the way, so he invited me to take a walk by the lake early in the morning, Yunyao explained briefly. Although her expression was normal, Ji Tianqing felt that something was amiss when he heard it. He thought to himself, so Big's senior sister and Tianzi have known each other since they were young. In that case, my previous guess was not wrong. Eldest senior sister's background is indeed not simple. Eldest senior sister is explaining to me in person. Are you afraid that I will misunderstand something? He already had a sense of propriety in his heart, so he said to Yunyao and Long Yunxiao, I didn't expect eldest senior sister and Tianzi to be friends. Since old friends have met, of course I should visit and greet them. Long Yunxiao only cared about Yunyao. Why would he care about what Ji Tianqing said or did? At this time, Yunyao cupped her hands and bowed to Tianqing. She said apologetically, Tianzi, I'm sorry. I made an appointment with junior brother Tianqing to go to the Creek Mountain Flower Valley today. Please forgive Yunyao for not being able to accompany you. Goodbye. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao were stunned. Ji Tianqing's expression didn't change, but he was secretly puzzled. Strange, when did I have an appointment with eldest senior sister? Why are we going to the Creek Mountain Flower Valley? However, he was quick-witted and immediately guessed Yunyao's intention. Could it be that eldest senior sister deliberately said this to use this as an excuse to get rid of Tianzi? Thinking of this, he also cupped his hands and bowed to Long Yunxiao. He revealed an apologetic smile and said, Your Majesty, please excuse me. Long Yunxiao frowned slightly. He glanced at Ji Tianqing and then looked at Yunyao. He vaguely guessed something in his heart. He secretly pondered in his heart, but his expression didn't change at all. He smiled and said, Yao Yao, I came all the way to the Tianshan region to meet you. I just chatted with you for a while, and you want to leave me here. Aren't you treating me as a friend? It just so happens that I also want to see the scenery of the Tianshan region. Yao Yao, shouldn't you be a good host and take me to see it? Ji Tianqing and Yunyao didn't expect Long Yunxiao to be so persistent and insist on going with them. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely be embarrassed to disturb their date and would have left long ago. However, Long Yunxiao was an honored guest and they were disciples of the Sky Pillar sect. They should be warmly received. Moreover, Long Yunxiao's words were neither light nor heavy. He was jokingly reprimanding Yunyao, making it impossible for Yunyao to refuse. Helpless, she could only say calmly, since Tianzi also wants to see the scenery, as disciples of the Sky Pillar sect, we naturally have to entertain you. Tianzi, please. Then, Yunyao, Ji Tianqing, and Long Yunxiao left the Jade Lake together and walked towards the Creek Mountain in the depths of the Sky Pillar sect. The Creek Mountain was one of the 9 peaks of the Sky Pillar sect. It was located in the deepest part of the mountain range and the scenery was very beautiful. There was a valley in the Creek Mountain that was filled with 5-colored spirit flowers. The flowers didn't wither all year round and the scenery was beautiful and pleasant. Ever since Ji Tianqing entered the Sky Pillar sect, he had been busy cultivating and increasing his strength and had never been to the Creek Mountain. After the 3 of them left the Sky Pillar peak, they quickly walked through the forest between the peaks and went straight to the Creek Mountain's flower valley. Yunyao had a cold personality and Ji Tianqing had an introverted personality. The 2 of them weren't good at talking and socializing. Long Yunxiao was eloquent, but he hid his thoughts and didn't chat with Yunyao and Ji Tianqing on the way. He silently observed Ji Tianqing and Yunyao. From some clues, he could see that Yunyao's attitude towards Ji Tianqing was both trusting and close. The 2 of them walked side by side and were only half a foot apart. They didn't feel strange at all. In Long Yunxiao's eyes, this distance made them seem as intimate as a couple, making him feel a little gloomy. However, Long Yunxiao understood Yun Yao's temperament very well. He had known Yun Yao for many years, but when had he ever seen Yun Yao take the initiative to get close to someone? With Yun Yao's taste, how could she fall for such an ordinary person? She's only doing this to deliberately avoid me. Thinking of this, Long Yunxiao felt a lot more relieved. After an hour, the three of them were about to reach the foot of the Creek Mountain. At this time, Long Yunxiao's spiritual sense inadvertently discovered that there was a white-browed old man in a yellow robe who seemed to have been following them 100 meters behind them. The white-browed old man was short and fat with a goatee on his chin. His strength had also reached the peak of the origin core stage. Chapter 382. Not long after, Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunxiao climbed up Shi Mountain. This was a mountain peak that was more than 3,000 meters tall. There was a huge rain-making spiritual formation on the mountain peak. The formation kept condensing thick clouds, and drizzling rain continued to fall, converging into a clear lake on the mountain peak. The lake water flowed down from the mountain peak, forming several streams on the hillside, and flowed to the valley halfway up the mountain. The valley was full of 5-colored spiritual flowers, which emitted a fragrant fragrance, attracting many bees and butterflies to wander among the flowers. A few streams flowed down from the mountain peak and passed through the flower valley, adding a bit of poetry to the flower valley. The name Shi Mountain was also derived from this. Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunxiao strolled in the flower valley, admiring the spiritual flowers and mountains. Their moods became much more relaxed and happy. Long Yunxiao could see that Yun Yao and Ji Tianxing were close, and there seemed to be signs of affection. However, he didn't take Ji Tianxing seriously, nor did he show the slightest dissatisfaction. He acted as if he didn't notice it at all. As usual, he chatted with Yun Yao and reminisced about the past. His words and actions were full of the majesty and bearing of an emperor. However, Yun Yao didn't have much interest in the topics he talked about. She had been silent the whole time. She was only closer to Ji Tianxing. Occasionally, she would chat with Ji Tianxing. Her tone and expression were also very gentle. In a bush at the edge of the flower valley, an old man in a yellow robe was hiding in the bushes, observing the movements of Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao from afar. This person had a short stature and a big belly, but he had to act like an immortal. Without a doubt, he was the trusted aide of the Tianjian sect master, Gao Yi, guest elder Huangfu. At this time, guest elder Huangfu was curled up in the bushes, peeping at Ji Tianxing and the others from afar. There was a playful sneer in his eyes. Hee, the sect master asked me to secretly move around the Sky Pillar sect and see if I can find any clues. I didn't expect that I would find such shocking news today. The Honorable Emperor not only knows Yun Yao, but he also has deep feelings for Yun Yao. Unfortunately, Yun Yao and Ji Tianxing secretly have feelings for each other. They seem to be close. Humph. How interesting. Guest elder Huangfu sneered in his heart. After peeping for a while, he quietly turned around and left. After leaving Creek Mountain, he hurriedly rushed back to Heaven Pillar Peak and entered a courtyard house with a cold environment. This residence was called the Guest Courtyard. It was a residence that the Sky Pillar sect used to receive guests. The Sky Pillar sect had arranged for the Heavenly Sword sect master Gao Yi and guest elder Huangfu to stay in this courtyard. After entering the courtyard, guest elder Huangfu carefully observed his surroundings and made sure that nobody was following him before he quietly entered the secret chamber. The secret room was dimly lit and empty. Apart from the 2 jade futons, there was nothing else in the room. Gao Yi was sitting cross-legged on a futon, meditating and cultivating with his eyes closed. After guest elder Huangfu entered the secret chamber, he quickly closed the stone door and cast a soundproofing array formation. Gao Yi was awakened by him and opened his eyes. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "Guest elder Huangfu, you seem to be in a hurry. What happened?" Guest elder Huangfu cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Sect master, you asked this subordinate to secretly move around in the Sky Pillar sect. This subordinate obeyed and quietly watched Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. Just now, this subordinate discovered a rather shocking matter. This is definitely the best news for us. Hearing this, Gao Yi's interest was immediately piqued. His eyes lit up. Tell me, what is the good news? Guest Elder Huangfu lowered his voice and reported truthfully, just now, this subordinate saw Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Tianzi. The three of them were actually together and even went to the Creek Mountain Flower Valley to enjoy the scenery. This subordinate followed them all the way to the Creek Mountain Flower Valley. After observing for a long time, I found out that Tianzi and Yun Yao had known each other for a long time. Moreover, Tianzi is very devoted to Yun Yao. However, Yun Yao's attitude towards Tianzi seems to be a little cold, but she is closer to Ji Tianqing. Hearing this, Gao Yi raised his eyebrows and a smile appeared on his face. He said in a low voice, "Hee, I really didn't expect Yun Yao to have such good fortune. Since Tianzi and Yun Yao know each other and have deep feelings for each other, he will definitely choose Yun Yao as his heavenly consort. This is a great thing for the Tianshan region. In the future, the Tianshan region will be taken care of by the imperial court and will definitely become the most powerful region. We will also be able to obtain great benefits from this. However, that little bastard Ji Tianqing is too much of a hindrance. He is sandwiched in the middle to prevent Yun Yao and Tianzi from contacting each other. I'm afraid he will ruin this matter. Guest Elder Huangfu, we have to think of a way to restrain Ji Tianqing and make him keep a distance from Yun Yao. This way, Tianzi will have a chance to get close to Yun Yao." Guest Elder Huangfu frowned and thought for a moment. However, he shook his head and said, "Sect Master, this subordinate feels that this matter is inappropriate. If Yun Yao becomes the heavenly consort, it will do us more harm than good. After all, Yun Yao is the chief disciple of the Sky Pillar sect. If she really becomes the heavenly consort, the Sky Pillar sect will have a backer and will definitely be taken care of by the imperial court. At that time, the Sky Pillar sect will be like a tiger that has grown wings, and its power will be even stronger. Not only will we not be able to deal with the Sky Pillar sect, but we will definitely be suppressed by them even more miserably." Gao Yi's brows immediately knitted together, and a gloomy cold light flashed in his eyes. After thinking for a moment, he nodded in agreement and said, "That's right. If Yun Yao really becomes the heavenly consort, it will definitely destroy our plan and make the Sky Pillar sect even more powerful. We can't provoke them." Guest Elder Huangfu frowned and thought for a moment before saying, "Sect Master, this subordinate feels that we might as well put the matter of the heavenly consort aside and ignore it. At present, what we should consider more is how to use external forces to deal with the Sky Pillar sect. This subordinate believes that Tianzi's position is high and noble, and he is the most powerful external force. If we can cause conflict between the Sky Pillar sect and Tianzi and make Tianzi dissatisfied with the Sky Pillar sect, then the Sky Pillar sect will be in danger. This is the best situation for us. Make Tianzi dissatisfied with the Sky Pillar sect?" Gao Yi revealed a puzzled expression and asked, "Guest Elder Huangfu, what do you think?" Guest Elder Huangfu already had an idea. He revealed an unfathomable smile and said, "The person Tianzi cares about is Yun Yao, and Yun Yao's attitude towards him is cold, but she is close to Ji Tianqing. Since that's the case, then we can do the opposite and prevent Yun Yao from becoming the heavenly consort." At this point, Gao Yi suddenly came to a realization, and a cold smile appeared on his face. This king understands. Since Tianzi cares about Yun Yao, then we will think of a way to matchmake Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao together and let Ji Tianqing get Yun Yao. If Tianzi's heavenly consort is snatched away, he will definitely hate Ji Tianqing to the bone and vent his anger on the Sky Pillar sect. Chapter 383. Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunshao played in the valley for half a day before leaving. After leaving the valley, the three of them went to several other mountain peaks to enjoy the scenery of the Sky Pillar sect. During this period, Yun Yao deliberately ignored Long Yunshao and walked side by side with Ji Tianqing. Their conversation and behavior were relatively close. Even those who didn't know could see that Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao were a couple, and Long Yunxiao was the awkward third party. However, Long Yunxiao didn't feel awkward at all. His expression was normal from beginning to end, and he even praised the scenery of the Sky Pillar sect. After the sun set, the three of them ended their tour and returned to their respective residences to rest. After Yunyao returned to the White Cloud Hall, she sat cross-legged on the bed and meditated. In the past few days, the emperor and the sect leaders of the various sects were in the Sky Pillar sect. As the chief disciple, she had to appear every day to deal with some matters. Therefore, she couldn't enter the secret room to cultivate in seclusion. She could only meditate and cultivate. Unknowingly, 4 hours passed and it was late at night. The entire scarlet firmament peak was quiet and shrouded in the hazy moonlight, looking quiet and serene. Yunyao ended her cultivation and opened her eyes. Today is the middle of the month. It's time to go to the Spirit Moon hot spring to cultivate. She muttered in a low voice, got up, left the room, and walked towards the backyard of the White Cloud Hall. There was a 10-meter square stone room in the backyard. It was set up with a special mysterious array and built into the Spirit Moon hot spring. This stone room was connected to Yunyao's bedroom and the secret room for cultivation. It only had 3 walls. There was no wall in front of it, nor was there a door. There was only a carved jade screen that separated the hot spring from the passage. Yunyao walked behind the screen and took off her phoenix-patterned boots, revealing a pair of fair and sparkling jade feet. Then, she walked towards the hot spring. This hot spring was 10 meters square. The water in the hot spring was boiling and contained a rich silver-white brilliance. Dense spiritual energy rose from it. There were many moon-white gems embedded at the bottom and the edges of the pool. They emitted a sparkling white light and illuminated the hot spring. This Spirit Moon hot spring was specially set up by Yunyao and expended a lot of materials to create it. She had the bloodline of the heavenly spirit's sacred body, so her physique was different from ordinary people. Her cultivation attribute was also somewhat special. Ever since she was 6 years old, she would soak in the Spirit Moon hot spring for a night every month. While cleansing her body and mind, she also had to cultivate and strengthen her bloodline power. When she was in Cloud Spirit Palace, Madame Yun had specially built a Spirit Moon sky spring for her. The heavenly spring was located in the clouds of the 9 heavens. It had an incomparably miraculous effect and was also very secretive. After she came to the sky-bearing sect, she naturally didn't have the same good conditions as in Cloud Spirit Palace. She could only build a Spirit Moon hot spring in the backyard. Yunyao walked to the edge of the hot spring and waved her hand to release a beam of true essence, activating the array formation of the hot spring. Suddenly, the bottom of the hot spring lit up with specks of moonlight, making the entire hot spring hazy and overflowing with spiritual energy. She reached out and removed the jade belt from her waist. Then, she took off her white dress and stored both the dress and the jade belt into her spatial ring. What a perfect, flawless, and peerless beauty! Her tall and slender figure, her white jade-like skin, her proud curves, and her alluring face. Every one of them was intoxicating and infatuating. Yunyao took out a white sand belt from her spatial ring and wrapped it around her slender waist, covering her white underwear and perky curves. Under the hazy moonlight, her straight and slender legs were as smooth and flawless as white jade, like the most perfect piece of art. She only wore a moon-white dudu on her upper body that wrapped around her undulating chest and her flat and white belly. She raised her arm to tidy her hair and bun before stepping into the hot spring. Ripples appeared on the surface of the hot spring, reflecting the hazy light. It made the hot spring feel like a dream and intoxicating. Yunyao walked into the hot spring and sat down cross-legged. The warm moon-white water immediately submerged her flawless body up to her shoulders. She formed a seal with both hands and placed them flat on her smooth and delicate knees. Then, she closed her eyes and began to cultivate. The hot spring was silent. Rich and gentle spiritual energy kept flowing into her body, cleansing her body and strengthening her bloodline. At the same time, Ji Tianqing was cultivating in his room to consolidate his martial arts foundation. Suddenly, a black figure flashed across the night sky and silently landed in the courtyard. It was a short and fat man in black. He had profound skills and was very agile. The man in black used his spiritual sense to investigate and immediately found Ji Tianqing in the room. He waved his hand and shot out 2 cold lights, which shot toward Ji Tianqing as fast as shooting stars. Swish! Swish! The 2 cold lights pierced through the night sky and instantly pierced through the wooden window, shooting toward Ji Tianqing's head. At the critical moment, Ji Tianqing was suddenly awakened and subconsciously tilted his head. The 2 cold lights suddenly brushed past him and nailed to the wall with 2 clanking sounds, splashing sparks. Ji Tianqing turned his head and saw that it was 2 hidden weapons, the morning soul nails. Someone is ambushing me. His face suddenly turned gloomy and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He leaped towards the window and smashed the wooden window with a bang, before rushing into the courtyard. The man in black saw him appear and turned around to escape without hesitation. His figure flashed and jumped over the courtyard wall and out of the courtyard. Ji Tianqing also jumped over the courtyard wall without hesitation and chased after the man in black. Humph. Now that the emperor and the sect masters are living in our sect, I want to see who is so bold to launch a sneak attack at this time. He snorted coldly in his heart and his eyes surged with a biting cold murderous intent. He used his shadowless steps with all his strength and followed the man in black. He passed through the dark night and ran down the mountain. No matter what, he had to catch that black-clothed man and see who had the guts to do such a thing. A quarter of an hour passed quickly. Ji Tianqing chased with all his strength, but he could not catch up with the man in black. He was dozens of meters away from him. At this time, he realized that he had chased the man in black up the red cloud peak and arrived outside the white cloud hall. Swoosh! The man in black flashed and jumped into the white cloud hall. Ji Tianqing was stunned and thought to himself, White Cloud Hall. Isn't this the residence of Senior Sister? It's late at night now. Would it be rude for me to rush in like this? However, he thought about it again. The man in black's identity was unknown. He came with ill intentions and was very powerful. If the man in black sneaked into the White Cloud Hall to assassinate Yunyao would be in danger. Moreover, the Tianjian sect had plotted to kill him and Yunyao. He could not help but suspect that the man in black might be related to the Tianjian sect. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated and jumped into the White Cloud Hall. He moved quickly in the night to search for the man in black. After 100 seconds, Ji Tianqing searched the White Cloud Hall but did not find the man in black. He did not find any clues. His expression became more serious and he became more worried. He ran through Yunyao's bedroom and went to the backyard. In the entire White Cloud Hall, only the backyard was not searched. He passed through the dark passage and saw a white jade screen at the end of the passage. Behind the screen was a stone room, which was faintly lit. He did not think much and rushed over as fast as the wind. However, when he went around the white jade screen and saw the scene in front of him, he was stunned. He never expected that the stone room behind the screen was a hot spring with abundant spiritual qi and hazy moonlight. In the hot spring, there was a long-haired beauty with a beautiful face and flawless skin. It was Yunyao. She was cultivating with her eyes closed. Her chest and fair shoulders were above the water's surface. She was not wearing a long skirt. She was only wearing a dudu and a tulle. Brothers, where are the recommendation tickets? Chapter 384. Yunyao was sitting upright in the hot spring, and her body below her neck was submerged in the water. However, Ji Tianqing could vaguely see the breathtaking beauty under the water. Yunyao, who was cultivating, was immediately awakened and opened her eyes subconsciously. When she saw that the person who broke into the hot spring was a man, a cold light gushed out of her eyes, and she subconsciously raised her hand to attack. However, when she saw that the person who broke into the hot spring was Ji Tianqing, she was stunned. The two of them were only 10 steps away from each other. When their eyes met, they were a little absent-minded and forgot to speak. Ji Tianqing's worry and anxiety turned into embarrassment. His eyes were a little evasive, and he didn't dare to look into Yunyao's eyes. Yunyao's pretty face was faintly red, and her lovely earlobes turned red. Her delicate body was also slightly trembling in embarrassment. She didn't expect that Ji Tianqing would break into the White Cloud Hall at this time and suddenly appear in the hot spring. If it were someone else, she would have sent that person flying with a slap. After a while, Yunyao came back to her senses. She quickly lowered her head and raised her hands in front of her chest to cover the deep, snow-white cleavage in her dudu. Ji Tianqing also came back to his senses. He quickly looked away and was about to explain. However, before he could open his mouth to speak, Yunyao's expression changed again. Her eyes were sharp as she looked at the screen behind him. In the passage behind the screen, there was the sound of robes fluttering in the air. Obviously, someone was rushing over quickly. Moreover, Yunyao's soul sense had already detected that the person who was rushing over was the person she didn't want to see the most. At this critical moment, she didn't hesitate to send a voice transmission to Ji Tianqing. Tianqing, come to me quickly and hide. Ji Tianqing was stunned. His heart skipped a beat, and he revealed an incredulous look. However, he also sensed that someone was rushing over quickly from the passage behind him. Seeing Yunyao's anxious face, he didn't have time to think. He immediately jumped into the hot spring and rushed to Yunyao's side. Yunyao reached out and pressed his shoulders, telling him to dive into the water and hide. She stood in front of Ji Tianqing and took out a long dress from her spatial ring, covering everything below her neck. The next moment, a thin man's figure crossed the screen like a gust of wind and came to the hot spring. This person had a handsome appearance. He wore a brocade robe and a feathered crown on his head. He was the son of heaven, Long Yunxiao. When Long Yunxiao saw the hot spring filled with spiritual energy and Yunyao who was sitting in the hot spring, he was dumbfounded. Yunyao covered her body with a long dress, only revealing her neck and head. However, she was still soaking in the hot spring and seemed to be practicing martial arts. As a man of the opposite sex and the emperor of the imperial court, he actually broke into a woman's residence in the middle of the night and peeped on her bathing in the hot spring. No matter what, this was a great offense, an extremely rude action. Long Yunxiao was so embarrassed that he couldn't show his face. He stared at Yunyao's beautiful face and forgot to explain himself. Especially when Yunyao's eyes were cold and her face was cold. She was glaring at him angrily, which made him feel even more guilty. Long Yunxiao. How dare you be so rude? Yunyao shouted angrily. Yao Yao, it's not what you think. Let me explain. Long Yunxiao's face turned red in embarrassment, and he quickly tried to explain himself. However, before he could explain himself, Yunyao shouted angrily, "Get out." The emperor of the imperial court, the son of the most respected emperor of the human race, was scolded by Yunyao, but he didn't lose his temper at all. Long Yunxiao cupped his hands and bowed guiltily. He quickly left the hot spring and went around the screen to return to the passageway. After he left, Yunyao secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Ji Tianqing hid behind her and stuck close to her fair and smooth back. Their posture was extremely intimate and ambiguous. However, Long Yunxiao hadn't left yet, so she could only suppress her embarrassment and didn't dare to move at all to avoid being noticed. At this moment, Long Yunxiao was standing 10 meters behind the screen. After he calmed down, he explained, "Yao Yao, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. Just now, I was resting in my residence when I suddenly received a letter. It said that your life was in danger. Although that letter was most likely fake, even if it was only 10% true, I had to rush over to see what was going on. I couldn't let anything happen to you." After he finished explaining, Yunyao said coldly, "Thank you for your concern. You were deceived. I'm safe and sound. You can leave now." Long Yunxiao tried to persuade her again, but she remained silent. It was obvious that her anger hadn't subsided, so he could only leave. After a while, when Long Yunxiao left the White Cloud Hall, Yunyao finally relaxed. She lowered her head to look at the pool and saw Ji Tianqing's hands wrapped around her waist. His whole body was pressed against her body. She immediately blushed and reached out to grab Ji Tianqing's collar and pulled him out of the water. Splash! Ji Tianqing came out from under the water, bringing up a big splash. He quickly used his hands to push his wet hair away and wiped the water off his face. He was secretly gasping for breath. He didn't know if it was because he had held his breath for too long, or because he was too excited or ashamed, but his face was a little red. Yunyao turned her head to look at him. She suppressed her embarrassment and pretended to be angry as she asked, "Tianqing, why didn't you stay in the Tianqing courtyard? Why did you break into the White Cloud Hall in the middle of the night?" Ji Tianqing gazed at her and quickly explained, "Eldest senior sister, I was cultivating in my room when I was suddenly attacked by a man in black. I followed him all the way to the White Cloud Hall. Recently, people from all the sects have gathered in our sect. There are too many people. I was worried that someone would harm you, so I came to see if you were okay." I didn't expect. His experience and thoughts were somewhat similar to Long Yunxiao's. Yunyao immediately frowned. She couldn't help but suspect that there was something fishy about this matter. Ji Tianqing looked at her with gentle eyes. His mind was filled with complicated thoughts. He thought to himself, "I rashly broke into the hot spring and saw eldest senior sister bathing. I was so rude, but she didn't have any intention of reprimanding me. She found out that Long Yunxiao was here. To prevent my identity from being exposed, she didn't care about her reputation and asked me to hide behind her. Even though I had such intimate contact with her, she didn't really get angry. If eldest senior sister didn't have feelings for me, she definitely wouldn't do this." Ji Tianqing calmly analyzed and immediately understood Yunyao's thoughts. He was very moved. Looking at her beautiful face that was so close to him, his blood suddenly flowed faster. A strong impulse inexplicably appeared in his heart. Driven by that impulse, he forgot everything. He subconsciously stretched out his arms and tightly hugged Yunyao in his arms. He bent down and kissed her soft cherry lips. Yunyao was frowning and thinking about the man in black. She didn't expect Ji Tianqing to suddenly hug her and immediately woke up. She was about to speak, but her small mouth was blocked by Ji Tianqing's. Chapter 385. After a long while, Ji Tianqing was still immersed in this deep kiss. She had already regained her senses and hurriedly pushed Ji Tianqing away. "Junior brother Tianqing, Yunyao looked at Ji Tianqing in disbelief. Her expression and eyes were very complicated, and she was so embarrassed that she almost suffocated. Ji Tianqing gazed into her eyes with a gentle gaze. He mustered up his courage and said solemnly, "Eldest senior sister, however," before he could say the words that had been buried in his heart for a long time, Yunyao reached out and pressed her hand on his lips, interrupting him. "Junior brother Tianqing, you should go back." After saying that, she jumped out of the hot spring and landed lightly beside the hot spring. When she was in midair, she had already wrapped her long dress around her body and covered her flawless jade body. Swoosh! Her figure flashed past the screen, entered the passage, and immediately hid in the secret cultivation room. Ji Tianqing was still standing in the hot spring. He smiled happily as he watched Yunyao's fairy-like figure leave. Eldest senior sister really has me in her heart. He secretly clenched his fists. The excitement and agitation in his heart made his blood boil. After a while, he jumped out of the hot spring and used his true essence to dry his robes. He took advantage of the night to leave White Cloud Hall. When he returned to Tianqing's courtyard, he was still sitting on the bed in a daze, recalling the scene in the hot spring. At this time, his heart was in a mess. His mind was full of Yunyao's beautiful figure, and he couldn't cultivate it all. After thinking for a while, he couldn't help but purse his lips and recall the taste of that deep kiss. After Long Yunxiao returned to his residence, he also sat at the desk by the window. He stared at the night sky outside the window and fell into deep thought. His face was a little gloomy, his brows were tightly knitted, and his eyes were very cold. Previously, he had rashly barged into the hot spring and was reprimanded by Yunyao. The situation at that time was special and completely out of his expectations. He didn't notice any clues. Now that he had calmed down and carefully recalled the scene at that time, he felt that it was a little strange. He knew Yun Yao very well. He knew Yun Yao's temperament very well. Yun Yao's behavior and reaction at that time seemed a little strange to him. She seemed to want to hide something, so she was eager to chase him away. Not only that, but he also sensed the aura of another person in the backyard. Thinking up to this point, Long Yunxiao's heart grew heavier and heavier. He muttered in a low voice, "Yao Yao, who exactly are you trying to protect?" At this time, a general in golden armor walked into the room quickly. He cupped his hands and reported, "Emperor, I followed your orders and observed from outside the White Cloud Hall. Sure enough, I found something." Long Yunxiao collected his thoughts and raised his head to look at the Imperial Forest General. He asked in a deep voice, "General Li, what did you discover?" General Li answered truthfully, "Emperor, not long after you left, I saw a young man in a white robe come out of the White Cloud Hall and leave quietly. That young man in a white robe is sect leader Chu's personal disciple, Ji Tianqing." Ji Tianqing. It's really him. Long Yunxiao frowned, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Today, he, Yin Yao, and Ji Tianqing were traveling together. Yin Yao and Ji Tianqing appeared to be very close. Originally, he thought that Yin Yao would definitely look down on an ordinary person like Ji Tianqing. She was just pretending to be close to Ji Tianqing. She was deliberately putting on an act for him to see so that he would retreat. But now, it seemed that things were a little beyond his expectations. Yin Yao and Ji Tianqing were deliberately getting close to each other. He was afraid that it wasn't as simple as acting. Thinking up to this point, Long Yunxiao's expression became more and more solemn, and many complicated thoughts surged in his mind. General Li didn't leave and continued to report, "Emperor, I met a person on my way back. That person was wearing the gray linen clothes of a servant disciple, but he claimed to be an elite disciple of the Sky Pillar sect. He also said that he had urgent news to report to you." Hearing this, Long Yunxiao frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, "Bring him in." "Yes, Emperor." General Li cupped his hands and accepted the order, then turned and left. Then, he brought a young man in linen clothes into the room. This person had a handsome face and a feminine temperament. His face was sickly pale. It was Bai Wuchen. He quickly walked into the room and bowed respectfully to Long Yunxiao. Disciple of the Sky Pillar sect, Bai Wuchen, pays his respects to the benevolent Holy Emperor. Reporting to Your Highness, Emperor, this disciple has very important news that I must report to you in person. Long Yunxiao looked at him indifferently, his eyes carrying a sense of scrutiny. "Bai Wuchen, since you're an elite disciple, why did you become a servant?" At the mention of this matter, Bai Wuchen's face was filled with grief and indignation. He said in a gloomy tone, "Emperor, all of this is because of Ji Tianqing. This person is sinister and cunning. On the surface, he looks steady and kind, but in reality, he's a scheming person who seeks revenge for the smallest grievance." Long Yunxiao furrowed his brows when he saw Bai Wuchen cursing Ji Tianqing viciously. His tone was indifferent as he said, "So, your so-called urgent news has something to do with Ji Tianqing?" "Of course." Bai Wuchen nodded heavily. He peeked at Long Yunxiao's reaction and probed, "Also, it has something to do with eldest senior sister Yun Yao." Long Yunxiao looked at him expressionlessly and said in a deep voice, "Go on." Bai Wuchen was secretly delighted and quickly added fuel to the fire. "Your Highness, Ji Tianqing was originally the young master of a small family in a declining country. Because of eldest senior sister's benevolence, she accidentally saved his life. Ji Tianqing used this opportunity to get close to eldest senior sister. Under her care, he became a disciple of our sect. Ever since he entered our sect, Ji Tianqing relied on his friendship with eldest senior sister to bully the other disciples. He's very arrogant and overbearing. Moreover, Ji Tianqing has been pestering eldest senior sister with ulterior motives. Ji Tianqing looks dull and honest on the surface, but in reality, he has many tricks up his sleeve. He's very good at sweet-talking eldest senior sister. Eldest senior sister is pure and kind, so she was bewitched by Ji Tianqing's sweet words. I warned Ji Tianqing and also reminded eldest senior sister twice. However, because of this, Ji Tianqing hated me. In order to get eldest senior sister, he didn't hesitate to use despicable means and forced me to be demoted to a servant. He became famous in the sect and became a genius in everyone's eyes. Without my interference, no one reminded eldest senior sister again. Because of this, she fell into Ji Tianqing's evil clutches. The two of them are inseparable. Now, they're stuck together like glue. Bai Wuchen tried his best to slander Ji Tianqing. Not only did he add fuel to the fire, but he also twisted the facts and made up lies. It could be said that he was unscrupulous. Long Yunxiao was expressionless from beginning to end. After he finished speaking, he shouted in a low voice, "How dare you? Who gave you the courage to slander the future heavenly consort? As a disciple of the Sky Pillar sect, instead of working hard, you slander your fellow disciples behind their backs. This kind of despicable behavior is unbearable." Chapter 386. From now on, you'll just be a servant disciple. Bai Wuchen was stunned when he heard Long Yunxiao's angry roar. He thought that when he reported the news to the emperor about the relationship between Ji Tianqing and Yunyao, the emperor would be furious. As the honorable emperor of imperial court, it was humiliating to have his future heavenly concubine taken away by another man. Under normal circumstances, the emperor would definitely take back Yunyao for the sake of his reputation. He would use forceful methods to punish Ji Tianqing, and he might even eliminate Ji Tianqing. This was exactly what he wanted. After he was demoted to a servant disciple, he became the laughing stock of Sky Pillar faction. His reputation was ruined. The unparalleled humiliation and hatred had already caused his mind to become somewhat twisted. Even if he could not get Yunyao, he would never let Ji Tianqing have her. However, he did not expect that the emperor would not be angry. Instead, he scolded him. The emperor's words were like an imperial edict to Sky Pillar faction. If the emperor said that he would be a servant disciple for the rest of his life, he could only be a servant disciple for the rest of his life. From this moment on, the rest of Bai Wuchen's life was completely ruined. He was stunned. He looked at the emperor in disbelief. He was so ashamed that he almost vomited blood. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't understand. When the emperor heard that Yunyao and Ji Tianqing were in love with each other, wouldn't he fly into a rage? While Bai Wuchen was still in a daze, Long Yunxiao's expression was indifferent. He shouted in a cold voice, "What are you still standing here for? Get out." Bai Wuchen came back to his senses and said in fear, "Please calm down, Emperor. Everything I said just now is true, there is no falsehood. Emperor, I was persecuted by Ji Tianqing." Before Bai Wuchen could finish, Long Yunxiao glanced at General Li. General Li immediately understood. He grabbed Bai Wuchen by the collar and dragged him out of the room. Bai Wuchen struggled hard but could not break free from General Li's grip. His body was thin and weak. In front of the tall and burly General Li, he was like a little chick. No matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. General Li carried him out of the room, passed through the courtyard, and threw him outside the palace gate with a bang. Bai Wuchen's face was covered in dust from the fall. He was humiliated to the extreme. Fortunately, it was late at night and no one saw his sorry state. He struggled to get up from the ground, brushed off the dust on his body, and looked at the palace gate with a ferocious expression, his eyes surging with rage. He clenched his fists so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. He gnashed his teeth in anger. The hatred and resentment in his heart could not be washed away even with all the water in the world. Damn bastard. What bullshit, Emperor, you deserve to have your sweetheart snatched away. He roared in his heart and cursed hysterically, I was kind enough to report the news to you. Not only did you not thank me, you even demoted me to a servant forever and ruined my life. Bastard. Ji Tianqing is a beast, and so are you. All of you will die a horrible death. Bai Wuchen stood outside the gate of the Milky Way Palace. After a long time, he left with an ashen face. On the other side, General Li had already returned to Long Yunxiao's room. Long Yunxiao was deep in thought, expressionless. General Li cupped his hands and said, "Emperor, based on Bai Wuchen's reaction, he didn't seem to be lying. Why did you punish him like this?" Long Yunxiao furrowed his brows as his lips curled into a disdainful sneer. "Of course I know that Bai Wuchen is right. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing are indeed a little too close. However, I have my own plans. How can I allow a treacherous villain like Bai Wuchen to tell me what to do? He inverted right and wrong in front of me and slandered Ji Tianqing. It's all because he hates Ji Tianqing but can't avenge him. So, he wants to use me to deal with Ji Tianqing. Huh, such a treacherous villain. He thinks he's smart and wants to use me? What a joke." After hearing his words, General Li was suddenly enlightened. He was immediately convinced and said, "Your Majesty is indeed wise. The dirty thoughts of those ordinary people can't escape your eyes at all." Long Yunxiao waved his hand expressionlessly. "Let's not talk about this person. Let's get down to business." General Li cupped his hands and asked seriously, "Emperor, how do you plan to resolve the grudge between the Tianjian sect and the Sky Pillar sect?" Long Yunxiao said unhurriedly, "Previously, Sect Master Chu of the Sky Pillar sect had already secretly reported the detailed reasons to me. Sect leader Chu suspects that the remnants of the demon clan have infiltrated the Tianjian sect and bewitched the Tianjian sect leader to stir up the conflict and hatred between the two sections." General Li nodded in agreement. With a grave expression, he said, "Just as the imperial tutor warned, the demon qi in the Tianshan region is surging. There must be remnants of the demon clan causing trouble." "That's right." Long Yunxiao nodded slightly and said in a serious tone, "I have been ordered to take charge of the situation in the Tianshan region. My main goal is to eradicate the remnants of the demon clan in the Tianshan region. As long as the remnants of the demon clan are eliminated, the grudge between the Tianjian sect and the Sky Pillar sect will be resolved." General Li thought for a moment and asked, "Emperor, what should we do next? Investigate the movements of the demon clan first?" Long Yunxiao nodded and ordered in a dignified voice, "General Li, take out the heavenly dragon plate now and deduce the aura of the demon clan. I want to see how many remnants of the demon clan are hiding in the star ancient realm. How dare they be so rampant in the territory of the human clan?" This general obeys. General Li cupped his hands and accepted the order. He quickly took out a square golden disc array from his space ring. The golden disc array was made of an unknown material. It was dark gold in color, and there were divine dragons engraved on its frame, as well as many array patterns and patterns. General Li used a secret technique and poured his majestic true yuan into the heavenly dragon plate. The entire disc array rapidly expanded into a huge disc array that was 5 meters long and 5 meters wide. The disc array was pitch black and empty. However, when General Li formed a seal with both hands and used a secret technique, the disc array lit up with a dark gold brilliance and condensed into a light screen. Countless patterns and lines appeared on the light screen, outlining numerous mountain peaks, mountain ranges, rivers, as well as vast and boundless forests and grasslands. After a short few minutes, a complete image appeared on the light screen. It was the complete map of the star ancient realm. General Li continued to use the secret technique and used the heavenly dragon plate to detect the aura of the demon clan. Long Yunxiao stared at the map calmly and waited patiently. After about 100 breaths of time, General Li finished using the secret technique. The map of the heavenly dragon plate immediately changed. 2 areas on the map lit up with black light and condensed into dark fog. One of the fog was very dense and was located slightly south of the center of the map. The other fog was lighter and was located in the east of the map. The light-colored black fog meant that the devil chi was weaker, and the strength of the devil clan was weaker. Chapter 387. On the heavenly profound dragon plate, 2 balls of black mist gently surged. Long Yunxiao stared at the map for a while before a cold smile appeared on his handsome face. Hee, as expected, there are demon remnants causing trouble. One of the balls of demonic mist is actually near the Sky Pillar sect. How audacious. After saying this, he looked at the thickest ball of demonic mist in the middle of the map and asked, General Li, where is that ball of demonic mist? General Li stared at the map for a while before cupping his hands and reporting, Emperor, this general has investigated the Star Ancient Realm yesterday and has some understanding of it. The ball of demonic mist is located in a city in the Star Ancient Realm called Spirit Flame City. Cultivators from all walks of life gather in Spirit Flame City. Most of the people in the city are inextricably linked to the 8 great sections. Moreover, Spirit Flame City is protected by the Grand Heaven Origin Array and is usually hidden. People from the 8 great sects must have a token to enter. After listening to General Li's explanation, Long Yunxiao had a plan in his heart. He ordered in a dignified tone, General Li, tomorrow morning, this ruler will leave the Sky Pillar sect and personally head to Spirit Flame City to eradicate the demon remnants hiding in the city. You will stay in the Sky Pillar sect and cooperate with Sect Master Chu's search. You must find the demon remnants near the Sky Pillar sect. General Li's expression immediately changed as he quickly cupped his hands and said, Emperor, you must not do this. You are the Emperor of the Imperial Court and your body is priceless. How can you risk your life to eliminate the demon remnants? Leave this matter to this general. You can stay in the Sky Pillar sect in command. Before leaving the Imperial Court of the Central State, the Imperial Tutor had solemnly instructed him to protect the Emperor's safety no matter what. Now that the Emperor was going to Spirit Flame City to personally eliminate the demon remnants, how could he not be worried? Long Yunxiao knit his brows and said with a solemn expression, General Li, this lord came to the heavenly stellar region with the heavy responsibility of exterminating the remnants of the demon race. How can I hide in the sky-bearing sect and be protected? General Li knew that he could not dissuade him, so he changed his words and said, Emperor, if you insist on going to Spirit Flame City, this general must go with you. No need. Long Yunxiao waved his hand and revealed a confident expression. He said proudly, I was born with divine veins and heavenly thunder's sacred body. No filthy chi can contaminate me. With this lord's strength and means, ordinary devil generals and devil kings can't do anything to this lord. General Li was still worried and wanted to persuade him a little more. However, Long Yunxiao had already made up his mind. He gave the order in a firm and resolute tone. General Li couldn't say anything more. He could only cup his hands in obeisance and leave the room. The next morning, Long Yunxiao walked out of the Empyrean River Palace and went to the White Cloud Palace to look for Yunyao. At this time, Yunyao was on the roof of the White Cloud Hall. She was sitting on a jade praying mat, facing the cliff where the sea of clouds was surging. She was meditating and cultivating. She was wearing a moon-white long dress, and her long black hair was draped behind her back. She was tied into a bun with a jade hairpin. She looked fresh and refined, and her temperament was otherworldly. Wisps of white mist lingered around her. It was as if she was sitting on top of the clouds and cultivating. She really looked like a fairy from heaven. Long Yunxiao looked at her graceful figure, and his eyes became very gentle. He said in a gentle tone, Yao Yao, you came to Yunzhong so early to meditate and cultivate qi? Yunyao ended her cultivation and opened her eyes. However, she didn't look back. She said in a cold voice, I was meditating here last night. Why would I come early? Long Yunxiao was a little embarrassed. He knew that Yunyao was still angry about what happened last night. However, he didn't know that the reason why Yunyao was restless and couldn't cultivate last night wasn't because of him, but because of Ji Tianqing's kiss. Long Yunxiao was silent for a moment. He didn't mention what happened last night, so as to avoid the two of them becoming more embarrassed. He said seriously, Yao Yao, I came to find you this time because I need your help with something. After saying that, he stared at Yunyao, waiting for her reaction. However, Yunyao was still sitting on the futon with her back facing him. He couldn't tell what her expression and attitude was. Long Yunxiao continued, the imperial tutor once observed the sky and divined the secrets of heaven. He predicted that the chaotic situation in the Tianshan region must be caused by the remnants of the demon race. Last night, I also used a secret technique to investigate. There are indeed remnants of the demon race hiding in the ancient star realm, and they are plotting against the Sky Pillar sect. In my opinion, as long as the remnants of the demon race are eliminated, the enmity between the Tianjin sect and the Sky Pillar sect will be resolved. The situation in the Tianjin region will also stabilize. I have already found out that there are remnants of the demon race hiding in Yanling City. I will personally go to Yanling City to eliminate the demon race. However, this matter is of great importance. I need your guidance and assistance. After he finished speaking, Yunyao finally reacted. She stood up and turned to look at Long Yunxiao. She said expressionlessly, "Since the emperor is looking for me for official business, Yunyao naturally won't dare to disobey. I will definitely assist the emperor in eliminating the demon race." Yunyao's attitude and tone were very indifferent. She looked like she was going about official business. Although Long Yunxiao was slightly embarrassed, Yunyao agreeing to accompany him to Yanling City made him happy. He was also full of anticipation for the upcoming trip to Yanling City. However, Yunyao frowned and thought for a moment. She added, "Since the remnants of the demon race are hiding in Yanling City, I have a suggestion. I hope the emperor will consider it. I am quite familiar with the ancient star realm, but I have never been to Yanling City. Coincidentally, junior brother Ji Tianqing has been to Yanling City before, so he is more familiar with the situation in the city. If the emperor wants this plan to go smoothly, why not bring junior brother Ji Tianqing along? He will definitely be of great help." Long Yunxiao immediately frowned, and the joy in his heart immediately dissipated. He originally wanted to use this opportunity to drag Yunyao to accompany him to Yanling City. During the process of eliminating the demon race, he could also spend some time alone with Yunyao and cultivate some feelings for her. However, he did not expect that Yunyao seemed to have seen through his intentions. She found a reasonable excuse to bring Ji Tianqing along. Damn it. I have to bring Ji Tianqing along again. Is it going to be 3 people traveling together again? Long Yunxiao muttered to himself. He was a little upset in his heart. However, he did not show any displeasure on his face. He nodded calmly and said, "In that case, for the sake of the successful completion of the plan to eliminate the demon race, I have no objections." Seeing that he had agreed to this matter, Yunyao did not say anything else. She left the roof and returned to the palace. She sent a maid to Tianqing's courtyard to pass the message. Then, she went to the Sky Pillar Palace to report this matter to the sect master, Chu Tianxing. When Chu Tianxing learned that the emperor was going to Yanling City to eliminate the demon race, he was naturally filled with worry. However, he could not dissuade him. He could only nod and agree to this matter. He also reminded Yunyao to be careful. Half an hour later, Ji Tianqing also rushed to the White Cloud Palace and met up with Yunyao and Long Yunxiao. After Yunyao explained the situation to him, he naturally agreed without hesitation. Then, the 3 of them left the Sky Pillar sect and set off for Yanling City. Chapter 388. Long Yunxiao originally wanted to release the double-headed golden dragon and use it as a mount to rush to Spirit Flame City. Spirit Flame City was more than 2,000 miles away from the Sky Pillar sect. With the double-headed golden dragon speed, they could reach it in 4 hours. However, Yunyao weighed the pros and cons and advised him not to release the double-headed golden dragon. After all, the double-headed golden dragon was too big and powerful. It was very eye-catching. The 3 of them were heading to Spirit Flame City because they had an important mission. They had to search for traces of the demons and eliminate the remnants of the demons. If they rode the double-headed golden dragon and rushed over with great fanfare, they would definitely alarm the other party and alert the enemy. Long Yunxiao felt that what she said made sense, so he dismissed the idea of riding the double-headed golden dragon. Thus, the 3 of them rode Yunyao's spirit beast, the White Crane, and rushed to Spirit Flame City at a moderate pace. The 3 of them stood on the back of the Spirit Crane and faced the howling wind. They looked down at the mountains and rivers below and remained silent. Although no one mentioned what happened last night, the three of them were well aware of certain things. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Of course, Ji Tianqing's expression did not change as he remained silent. In fact, he was in a very good mood. Occasionally, he would be distracted and recall the charming scene from last night. Spirit Flames City was divided into 4 districts according to their location. The East District Market was the territory of the Heavenly Eagle Workshop's owner. It was also the most prosperous district in the city and an important trading area. In comparison, the West District was much more dilapidated and looked like a slum. The Old West District was full of squat houses and narrow, dirty streets. Most of the people walking around were dressed in tattered clothes and had a wooden expression. They looked unkempt and dirty. In some dark and dirty alleys, beggars in ragged clothes or pitiful people with wounds all over their bodies could be seen lying on the side of the road. Outside of some of the old taverns and grocery stores, some ugly, mentally deranged lunatics would often pop up, running around and cursing. Compared to the other bright and prosperous districts in the city, the West District was lifeless and filled with the aura of decay and death. Most of the beggars, thieves, and scoundrels in the city were gathered in this district. Of course, the poor people who were sick but had no money to seek medical treatment also gathered in the West District, struggling at death's door or waiting for death. Many years ago, there was a rumor in Spirit Flames City that the Western District was a deserted land of death. It was shrouded in the shadow of the devil and was gradually corroding and decaying. The people living in the city would never step into the West District for no reason. Even normal people would mysteriously disappear after entering some of the creepy places in the West District. Even those who were lucky enough to survive would become mentally deranged lunatics or pitiful wretches riddled with scars. And all of this was intensifying year by year, and it seemed to be getting more and more intense. Ordinary citizens and martial practitioners were both wary and curious about the Western District, but they did not dare to investigate the reason. There were only a few major forces in the city. Perhaps they knew some inside information, but they all pretended not to know. They tacitly guarded their own territories and would not step into the Western District. Under such circumstances, there were many rumors and slanders in the city, making the Western District even more mysterious and terrifying. At the end of a certain street in the depths of the Western District, there was an old and decaying house called Parasol Tree Courtyard. This old house occupied an area of 1,000 square meters. A few decades ago, it had been the residence of a wealthy man and had flourished for a time, with a flourishing population. However, on a rainy night 60 years ago, the wealthy man's family of more than 30 people, along with nearly 100 servants and guards, all mysteriously died in one night. From then on, this house was abandoned and became a famous haunted house. In recent decades, haunted events had frequently occurred in Parasol Tree Courtyard, scaring passers-by into insanity or mysteriously disappearing. Even in the clear day, the house was shrouded in invisible dark clouds, appearing eerie and terrifying. Over time, the name of the haunted house spread far and wide, and no one dared to casually approach it. Although it was daytime, the sky was gloomy and dark, with a light drizzle falling from the sky. The door of Parasol Tree Courtyard was tightly shut. The vermilion door's paint had long since peeled off, revealing the dark iron. There was an old plaque on the door frame, with the words Parasol Tree Courtyard written on it. It hung crookedly on the wall, half of it drooping down to block the door. In the courtyard behind the door, there were a few bare trees, and the ground was covered in a thick layer of fallen leaves and dust. The doors and windows of the rooms and corridors around the courtyard were old and decaying, covered in cobwebs. If one looked closely, they would discover palm-sized spiders, scorpions, and all kinds of poisonous insects hidden in the fallen leaves and dust. On the old and decaying beams and door frames, as well as in the dark corners of the walls, there were often colorful snakes coiling around. Originally, no one should have lived in this haunted house. But in the depths of the house, in a secret room made of black stone, 2 soft voices came from it. The light in the secret room was dim, the air gloomy and cold, and the air was filled with the stench of decay and blood. 2 figures were whispering to each other in the room. One of them was more than 3 meters tall and as muscular as a giant. He had a head full of long red hair, and his body was covered in dense purple hair. He wore a necklace of bone teeth around his neck. His body was naked, and only a black python apron was wrapped around his waist. His entire body exuded a bloodthirsty killing intent. There was no doubt that this person was the Blood Demon King. The person who was standing beside him and conversing with him in a low voice was surprisingly a stooped old woman. This old woman was short and thin, like a 1-meter-tall monkey. She wore a black robe and a cloak, and in her hand was a crooked walking stick. At the top of the walking stick were 2 flat snake heads that were constantly swaying left and right, spitting out their tongues. Under the black cloak, her withered face was covered in thumb-sized pustules and pits, looking extremely sinister and terrifying. In addition to the Blood Demon King and the black-robed old woman, there was also a stone table in the room. On the table was a half-meter-tall purple pagoda. The purple pagoda had 9 floors, and each floor was rotating, flashing with a faint purple light. The 9 floors of the pagoda rotated at different speeds and directions, appearing extremely messy, but there was a unique pattern to it. The purple light from the pagoda was reflected on the walls of the secret room, like a light screen, showing an image. In the image, there were 3 young men and women riding on a white spirit crane, flying through the sky. Seeing this scene, the black-robed old woman curled her toothless mouth and let out a hoarse sneer. He. The prey is coming toward us. The Blood Demon King also revealed a bloodthirsty sneer, clenching his fists, and said, just in time. This king has not drunk the blood of humans for a long time. These little bastards dare to come to Flame Spirit City to find this king. This king will not let them return. Chapter 389. Without a doubt, the image displayed by the 9-story purple pagoda was of Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao, who were thousands of miles away. The Blood Demon Lord stared at the 3 of them in the image, his eyes fixed on Ji Tianqing. His eyes were filled with bloodthirsty intent. Granny Ghost, that kid is very important to me. According to the High Priest's report, that kid seems to have obtained the heavenly astral bead and is closely related to Kenshin. I need your help to find out if that kid has the heavenly astral bead or not. Granny Ghost looked at Ji Tianqing in the image and nodded gently. How dare these 3 juniors come to Flame Spirit City? They really don't know what's good for them. At this point, Granny Ghost paused and asked in a puzzled tone, but why have you been looking for the heavenly astral bead for the past 100 years and are willing to do anything for it? The Blood Demon Lord hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, I've investigated it before. It said that a drop of Kenshin's divine blood is sealed in the heavenly astral bead. If I get the heavenly astral bead, I can offer it to His Majesty the Demon King and use Kenshin's divine blood to restore His Majesty the Demon King's vitality. Moreover, Kenshin's inheritance can save us demons, allowing us to cultivate like normal people and not turn into hideous monsters. Granny Ghost was stunned for a moment and suddenly grinned. That's a big problem. The true form of you demons is really too ugly. Ha ha ha, the Blood Demon Lord lowered his head and glared at her. He said in a low voice, aren't you ugly? Granny Ghost shook her head and said in a playful tone, I was also a great beauty in the past. Otherwise, how could I have mesmerized you? How could I have made you kneel before me? The Blood Demon Lord rolled his eyes silently and didn't comment on that. Moreover, looking at Granny Ghost's current appearance, he didn't want to say anything more. Granny Ghost naturally understood that. She said in a slightly emotional tone, sigh, it's a pity that in order to obtain more power and master godlike techniques, some sacrifices must be made. When the Blood Demon King heard the complicated tone in her words, he immediately felt the same way and calmed down. He bent down and patted Granny Ghost's shoulder. He said in a low voice, Granny Ghost, don't think too much. Let's get down to business. Granny Ghost nodded and took out a handful of withered yellow straws from her wide and greasy sleeves. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that they were 16 simple-looking scarecrows, each the size of a palm. Granny Ghost placed the 16 scarecrows on the table in a row, and then took out 16 dark yellow talismans from her sleeves. She held a talisman between her left index and middle fingers while waving the snake-headed walking stick with her right hand. Streaks of green light shot out as she chanted a secret technique. Life is full of calamities and deep enmity. Death is difficult to resolve as a lonely soul. Now, I've been ordered to break through the void and turn into a vengeful spirit to avenge myself. After that, she stuck the talisman in her left hand onto a scarecrow. Suddenly, the talisman ignited with a dark green flame, enveloping the scarecrow as it flew out of the secret room and landed in the courtyard outside. Swoosh! The scarecrow that was enveloped by the flame immediately turned into a 2-meter-tall skinny man in a black robe, standing motionlessly in the courtyard. This skinny black-robed man's body and face were hidden in the black robe, as if he was engulfed by the darkness and could not be seen clearly. The only thing that could be seen was a pair of green light spots in the black robe. They looked like the black-robed man's eyes, but also like 2 balls of dark fire. Granny Ghost used her secret technique again and stuck a talisman on the second scarecrow. Swoosh! The second skinny black-robed man appeared in the courtyard, standing motionlessly, emitting a cold aura of death. Then, as Granny Ghost kept using her secret technique, more and more black-robed men appeared. The third, the fourth, the fifth. After a short while, the 16 scarecrows were stuck with talismans and used her secret technique, turning into 16 black-robed men. Granny Ghost used her left hand to cast a spell and shook the snake-headed walking stick with her right hand, as if she was giving some kind of order. Suddenly, the 16 motionless black-robed men jumped out of the courtyard, passing through the streets and alleys like ghosts, and sped out of the city. After the 16 black-robed men left, Granny Ghost put away her shriveled left hand and said, "All right, let's wait here for the good news." The Blood Demon King witnessed the process of her casting and could not help but grin. "Granny Ghost, I haven't seen you for many years. Your soul curse secret technique is getting more and more exquisite." Granny Ghost chuckled and said with a dry voice, "Pa, it's just a small trick. Let's wait for a good show." It was dusk, and the sun had already set. Night was about to fall. The white crane spirit beast flew continuously for 10 hours and finally crossed more than 2,000 miles, arriving near Yanling City. The spirit crane was circling above a grassland in the dusky sky. Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Long Yun Xiao were standing on the back of the spirit crane, looking down at the grassland. Long Yun Xiao raised his eyebrows and looked at Yun Yao in front of him. He asked, "Have we arrived at Yanling City?" Before Yun Yao could answer, Ji Tianxing explained, "The grassland below us is the entrance to Yanling City. Yanling City is usually covered by a large array, so it's impossible to see it." Long Yun Xiao nodded and did not say anything. After a while, the spirit crane circled a few times in the sky and landed on the grassland with a raging gust of wind. The 3 of them jumped off the spirit crane's back and landed on the grassland. Yin Yao cast a secret technique and put the spirit crane into her jade pendant. Ji Tianxing stood in the lush grassland and looked around, looking for the entrance stone tablet. Yin Yao and Long Yun Xiao were silent and secretly looked around. The light was dim, and the grassland was dead silent. There was a faint trace of coldness. Ji Tianxing looked around and saw the entrance stone tablet. It was just 100 meters away. He was about to bring Yun Yao and Long Yun Xiao over, but at this moment, more than 10 wisps of fire suddenly appeared in the grassland behind him. Swoosh! 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 In the blink of an eye, more than 10 skinny black-robed men appeared out of thin air on the empty grassland. Every black-robed man was cold and dead. They were exuding a cold aura of death, as if they were evil spirits from hell. They appeared silently and did not slow down at all. They pounced on Ji Tianxing as fast as the wind. Although the black-robed men did not have any weapons in their hands were black and sharp claws. They were slender and sharp like daggers. They were not human hands at all. The 16 black-robed men immediately surrounded Ji Tianxing. They reached out their cold and sharp claws and grabbed at his vital points. At that moment, Ji Tianxing only felt a cold wind blowing on his face. His body was as cold as ice. Yin Yao and Long Yunxiao also sensed that something was wrong. Their expressions changed immediately, and they reminded him. Tianxing, be careful. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.